as well on our panel, but she got sick, and so very grateful you stepped up. I'm very grateful that you stepped up to lead her topic and help us out. So thank you for that. But I'll let them each introduce themselves as they speak. Ready to go? Okay.
Aloha makako. My name is Stacey Alapa'i. 2 years ago, I was in the audience at this event. And I have many titles. Some of you maybe follow me on Instagram. And my first introduction to energy really was having an issue with my bill, and no one was helping me. And then Shay kind of took pity on me and introduced me to her friends who know about energy, and I was able to learn a lot about energy efficiency, but also about we hear about a lot of these programs that are meant to help us, and I started using myself as the guinea pig to see how easy they were to actually access any of these programs. I could talk for hours about that experience of working with the many different acronyms, the HSCO and White Energy and HEGO and the PUC, and there's probably more I'm forgetting. But what really inspired me about this event 2 years ago was Leilani Chow from Molokai was here and talking about their CRAP project, where they discuss their community values and the way they're really trying to flip the script on energy. A lot of what I've learned in the past 2 years is that energy is Oahu centric. It's mostly privately owned, money forward. There's lots of complex jargon and pre-decided outcomes that we kind of do these meetings just to check some boxes. And so my goal and a lot of the projects that I've helped either lead or participate in have been focused on moving towards things that are more community-led, community controlled, with concise summaries and easily accessible. And what I really like about this open space model that Genesis continues to really try to teach us through practice is that it is much more of an open-minded discussion. And so I want to encourage everybody here to bring your ideas. And a lot of what Shay and I have brought to the two projects that we've led, the Upcountry Energy Resilience Project and the Power Back Project with these cool batteries that everybody seems to love, is more, instead of asking what can we do and what's been done before, asking like, why can't we do this? Or have we tried this before? And that's kind of why I'm here. I'm a big why can't we do it? And we will also have some presentations on these batteries. This is the smallest one that we were giving away to fire survivors. And I have the one size up that's on that table over there, and it has saved my fridge multiple times through multiple outages. And I would love to talk more with you about those really kind of accessible backup power solutions that we've been able to provide for people for around $1,000, sometimes less, sometimes a little bit. But that's why I'm here. I'm going to be talking about community values and kind of close to where Shay is when she's doing the battery demo. I'll be hopping around. And what's the other thing? I also am part of the co-op that we're working to build. Ironically, we all are on the board now that Barry's here. So we'd love to talk to you all about that too. Did I miss anything?
No.
All right, Barry, you're up.
But we all thought we'd each have a chance for one comment about community values, and then we'll go to Barry's topic.
Okay.
Barry, is there anything you wanted to say? Add on to what Stacy said? So, is there anything you want to add onto her topic?
No.
No. Bad.
I was just gonna say, some of you have been around for a long time. There's like these IRP meetings that HECO held, the integrated resource planning. This isn't really that, but this is, I think, a good opportunity for someone outside the utility to bring people together and talk about energy. So I appreciate everyone showing up.
Yeah, I just want to mention, and Leilani Chow and the group on Molokai have been doing some really great work. And she was thinking about coming over. She's been to these little conferences we've had before, but they've done some great work in community first planning. So, like what we all hear is like, oh, there's a project that's been planned behind our houses or in this neighborhood, and no one asked us first. And they've done all of this planning, they put all this money into it, and they really aren't about to change their mind. Whereas if they started with the community and said, where would you like it? What would you like? They might actually be more successful because then we could choose together. So that's what we're trying to do, is develop more understanding and intelligence about what's needed, and then able to make more informed and educational choices and actually participate in the process. But that starts with community values, figuring out what's most important. And they really did a great job on that in Molokai, what they call their CRAP. What does that acronym stand for? You know, community energy.
Action plan, I guess. Is that it?
Yeah.
And I do want to thank Lauren. She's here with Sierra Club, and Sierra Club has provided the food tonight, so thank her.
Thank
as
you.
well. Hey, you're up, Barry. You introduce.
Aloha Kaka, I'm Barry Solomon. I'm a professor emeritus of energy policy from Michigan Technological University, where I was on the faculty for over 20 years, but I've been on Maui full-time over 10 years now. And I also worked at the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, Office of Electric Power Regulation, as a senior economist, and DOE and EPA back when they used to do good things. So I was just asked to talk briefly about firm power, what it is, why it's important, maybe what the options are. So firm power is an essential component of an electric power system in order to ensure reliability. Typically, you want to have a minimum level of the total electricity generation be firm power, maybe something like 20–30%, but it's a little subjective what the right number is. So the different types of firm power, say on the mainland, are primarily coal, nuclear, some oil, though not a lot of oil is used in the mainland to generate electricity, and nuclear power as well. And as far as renewable energy goes, some types of hydroelectric power can be firm power, but not always. So turning to Hawaii and Maui, the firm power options for the islands are probably more limited. You know, if we want to get away from fossil fuels, which most people agree we do, then that limits us to a few of the renewable energy options. So it'd be primarily geothermal energy, such as they have on the Big Island at the Puna site for firm power, and also some types of biomass energy can be firm power as well, as has been proposed on Maui and central Maui with the Ukiu project, 40-megawatt plant that's been proposed near the landfill. And the other option would be, again, some type of hydroelectricity. Pump storage hydro in principle can be firm power, but you know, it needs to be coupled with some other things to work well. So those are the main options to consider. And you know, since we have some old oil-fired plants on Maui, Maalaea and Kahului, that someday are going to be taken out of service, there's a need to replace them with some level of firm power. So that's where the proposal for the Ukiu project came into play. And the status of that currently is there is an application to the Hawaii PUC for a power purchase agreement between them and Hawaiian Electric Company that they are considering. It's been delayed because the first application was rejected. There were some interveners in that proceeding, including a couple people on this panel. So that's been delayed, and one consequence of that, unfortunately, or for better or worse, is the retirement date for the Kahului plant has been delayed again, is kind of now up in the air. So that's kind of the story for firm power.
And I guess where I'm supposed to comment.
Yeah, just anything you want to add about firm power?
The only thing I was gonna add, which is actually something I wanted to talk about, so I can just say it now, is there is the governor and the state energy office have like entered some sort of memorandum of understanding with a company called JERA. And to bring liquid natural gas to Hawaii in place of diesel fuel. And so like you know, that's another potential source of firm power. And it could save money, but I don't know how many of you have been following in the news, but there was a report that came out that said it was going to save, you know, each ratepayer like $500 a year, and that was completely false. And they sort of made errors in their math, and so now it's like more on the order of like maybe 1 to 2 cents a kilowatt hour if all goes well. It could also swing the other way, and so I guess this is a decision that Hawaii is making, but it does seem like odd that we're making this huge decision to do this whole infrastructure change to LNG without more public input and also without competitive bidding. Like, I don't know how they already chose who they're going to work with. So I think there's going to be a lot more about that, but that's definitely something that, like, out of this meeting, if we all let like the governor know, or people know, like, hey, we think this should be a competitive bid at least, and we think there should be a little bit more public input to this decision. That's the kind of, I guess, information we're trying to give you, and also encourage you to like, you know, speak out a little bit.
And just to be clear, that's a proposal just for Oahu and not for Maui.
Yeah,
But we would still be paying for it. I'm pretty sure. Some of it.
I think, yeah.
And
There could be benefits to liquid natural gas. It's more flexible potentially in terms of being able to like ramp up and ramp down the generation to like follow the renewable energy. And you can operate the generators at like a lower capacity and a higher capacity with better efficiency than the diesel generators. So it's not crazy that they want to do that. It's just a little bit odd that they've sort of made this decision and already chosen a company they're going to work with without a competitive bid.
Is this strictly for energy, or is it gonna be replacing things like propane?
No, this is really just for like actual like energy generation. But if they electricity, but if they did bring LNG in, I mean, it could also be used like once it's here and available, that it could be used in other ways, I guess, you know.
All of the appliances here are, almost all of them are for propane.
For propane,
And
yeah.
It's not,
I don't think they're trying to change that, but I'm saying like if they were refining or whatever they're doing, processing, storing LNG here, it could be used in other ways, I
oh,
assume.
it could be, sure, yeah.
There's a lot of environmental ramifications to producing LNG, storing LNG. There's a whole broad,
Yeah.
what do they call, externalities
Yeah.
connected with it. Yeah.
Come on in.
that was one behind me. That's Eric. Was this one? Oh,
Eric, you have a question?
probably gonna clarify this one. I guess. Eric is one thing.
Hi. Yeah, could I add a little bit of clarification on the LNG?
Sure.
Sure.
You're from Hawaii State Energy, so I think you were just mentioned.
Yeah. Oh, I guess first of all, I just wanted to thank you so much for inviting me to this event. It's a real honor to be here, and the presentations have been fantastic so far. It's really wonderful to see the turnout, and I'm here like first and foremost just to hear from all of you about your interests. As Barry mentioned, the LNG proposal is just for Oahu, not for Maui. But I just wanted to clarify two things. One, that there's a memorandum of understanding between the state of Hawaii and JERA, but it's not solidified that this is going to happen. For this to happen, there would have to be many permitting processes. It would have to go before the Public Utilities Commission and would have the opportunity to be vetted by many different parties. And then the other point of clarification I wanted to just add is that what we burn right now is not oil, or is not diesel. It's actually low sulfur fuel oil, which is not really burned anywhere else in the United States, as Barry mentioned. So most parts of the mainland burn LNG, coal, hydro, as mentioned, and we're actually really far behind in Hawaii, burning low sulfur fuel oil, which is the dirtiest, most expensive, most volatile fuel out there. So just wanted to share that. Again, thank you so much for inviting me into this space. Happy to share any resources and really looking forward to hearing from all of you. So thank you again, and great to see some familiar faces.
Great, thanks.
Thanks, Eric.
So, we could do this in a breakout and talk just about LNG, or if maybe we'll take a few more questions, because it's a really important topic. It's in the news right now, so I could see a hand.
Yes,
Go ahead.
there's another additional thing that came up.
What's your name and
My name is Jensen,
Jensen, hi.
and I'm an engineer, but I'm not an electrical engineer, but I understand what it is. Further, an SMA will also be needed because now they're gonna build the harbor over there, so that you know how many years that's gonna take to the normal SMA. I only have one thing to say about this, that this is a total joke. It is unbelievable that the government will do that, unbelievable. Further, as we all know, the latest weather report that comes out now. So we are talking about burning gas for another 30, 40 years. And then, as we all know, now the hurricane season is coming up now. And guess what? It went up like 200% for the normal years there. So we can be looking for that coming in there. So at least I can say for myself, it is the most unbelievable I've ever heard. It is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Shane?
I just wanted to add, because the local news has reported on this, and this is okay, this is reported in the energy news sector. When people say, where did this come from? So in March, the Green administration met with the Trump administration here in Hawaii. Trump administration was here in Hawaii. I'll just read from this article. The Trump administration also has been eager to help. It already has a separate deal with JERA to purchase American LNG. And it pushed a gas build out on Puerto Rico Interior Secretary Interior Secretary Doug Borgum and National Energy Dominance Council Executive Director Jared Egan visited Hawaii last month, spending less than a day on what Egan called a hugely successful meeting. So if you're asking, where did that come from?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think too, if I could just step back a little bit from like the specific types of firm power. For me, when I first started learning about energy stuff, I was just like, why can't we just put solar panels on every house, problem solved? And that's where the firm power piece really comes in, because there's firm energy and then there's variable energy, intermittent. And so the firm power is important because you can just kind of turn it on and turn it off at your whim. But like with solar panels, you need the sun or a storage device,
Or the wind, yeah.
or the wind, if the wind's not blowing, so you can't like rely on it in the same way. But I do think in general, the energy industry is really focused on that last like 10% to get to 100% renewable, where we still got a lot of work to go to get to that 90. So I think we could focus more on like just getting us using the tried and true solar, wind, batteries, the easy stuff, so that there's a little more time to talk through these firm power questions, because when Barry was listing them all, I'm like, oh, all the really controversial bad stuff, and not necessarily bad, but things that often cause controversy and takes a lot more time for the community to either get on board with it or have their questions answered. And that's where I think like leading with community first is really important, because no always has to be on the table. Because if it's not on the table, then that means you're not really asking for consent. You're just sort of pretending. And that's why I think we're starting these conversations now, I hope, is that it's not going to move too quickly. And when I attended the DHHL's geothermal information sessions, that was something that kind of calmed my initial concerns, because the way it's reported is as if it's happening tomorrow. And they made it very clear that like this is going to be a long conversation. So it's important if you care about this stuff to subscribe to everything and engage with it at every stage, because you don't want to be coming in when the thing's getting built in your backyard. That's like the worst time to object at that point. You know, there's a lot of opportunities before that, that are much easier to be heard.
Yeah, it's a good point to keep in mind the contrast between firm power and intermittent power, because firm power, you basically want to be able to use it all the time except for planned maintenance and repairs, which is fairly infrequent, where intermittent power, you have to have something for backup. And as I indicated, you know, there's just some minimal level of firm power you want, and the exact level is subject to some debate, but you know, at least 10%, more likely 20 to 30%.
Percentage
About 20 probably.
of what?
Of the
total
total
amount of power.
electricity supply.
of the total grid.
Yeah.
One like example that's easier for me to grasp is when we use these batteries, I power mine with solar panels. But when I know we're gonna have weather, I'll either charge it from the wall to keep it at a certain level, or when we had that long, like 3-day outage up country, some of the participants in our program had a propane generator and this one, and so they would run the propane generator for like half an hour to charge these up all the way. So they're still using less gas by kind of like using them together. And so this is like an intermittent, and the gas one is firm, but you can't really put a gas generator inside your house. So it's less of a either or conversation and just more how you can work them together in a way that makes sense for your house. But then when you look at the bigger picture, how does it make sense for our community? And how are we gonna use the firm power resources we have as like almost like a backup plan? Because in my ideal world, we'd be focusing on the intermittent and the solar and wind and stuff like that. And the firm is more like a backup plan if for some reason there's no sun and no wind for an extended period of time.
Yeah. So the idea is we need some basic power, which they call firm power instead of like basic power. We need something to have reliable power all the time. So there's this basic need, as far as I can tell. And one way you can do that is take the solar and wind and charge up the batteries, or pump water up to a lake, and then when the power goes down, you could run that down, turn the turbines on right away. So that's when pump water storage is an option. And nuclear isn't an option here because it's not constitutional, and LNG is not renewable. We're trying to have a renewable goal, and nor is diesel and oil. So
Yeah, that pushing of the water up the hill.
takes power, and then you get
Yeah,
it back
I mean,
90%.
your windmill could do it.
That's right. Yeah.
Or you can catch rain and stuff like that.
Somebody on Zoom was saying that in California, they're saying that the solar and the wind can be a firm. Energy.
With backup batteries.
Yeah.
With the batteries make it firm.
Yes.
But they only last so long. And the batteries expire every 10 years or so, whereas if you built a reservoir, it would be there for.
It's
hundreds
kind of more like, you know, we just had the like Kona low. So say it's really cloudy for a bunch of days, you know, you may not always have the solar resource every day to charge back up the battery. But like, and so like the idea would be like, you know, with the firm power would be like that resource would be there potentially in the event that there wasn't enough solar and wind and battery storage. But like to Genesis point, like if you did have a large enough pump storage resource, like that could go for days. Like you could have a lot of power there.
And I saw Sally had a question back there.
Hi, thanks. My name is Sally. I just wanted to ask, while we have our representative from the HESO on the line. So our main firm power here on Maui are those two main power plants, which were Kahului, which was supposed to close. Ma'alaya has not closed and didn't close, as I understand that. I used to work for HESO. The parts that they needed to fix the turbines in Ma'alaya a few years back, they couldn't get the parts because the Mitsubishi plant closed down. So my question is, how long do we have this firm power on hand? Is there a new date
Shana,
for
do you know?
closure?
Sheena,
Shana's from HECO, if you can answer.
Ah,
for having us. I'm Dana Decker from Hawaii Electric. So the Mitsubishi Tactical, they actually had sent a letter saying that they were gonna maybe have spare parts for some of the engines at them.
Okay.
So in the last couple of years where they did inform the company about that, they were able to get their parts to cover for the next several years.
Okay.
And so that's only certain units at the plant, right? There's more than just the Mitsubishi unit.
Okay.
The probably power plant is the one that was supposed to be
Right.
retiring
Right.
the generators there and then getting the synchronous condensers in order to take more renewable energy. So a lot of time is gonna be part of the firm
Okay.
generation, right?
Okay,
And then only part that is what is supposed to be retired.
okay, so is there a new date for that?
So right now it's still 2028 as far as where.
Oh, it's 2028 now.
Yeah, there's 2027 with the different Department of Health. Yeah, it has been pushed back because of all the Department of Health permitting. And then we need projects in order
And
to
entire
replace
switch,
it.
everybody.
Right, yeah, we gotta replace the retired generation with renewable energy first before we can shut down the unit. So,
28.
yes, the part is still up to the Department of Health is saying, but that's why the energy is that certain generation that is being looked at for the.
Okay, well, let's get busy.
Yeah.
28.
To Hiko's credit, last year at the energy conference, they presented about this for a pretty long time and they were like searching the world for parts and they got the parts apparently.
Great.
And they're also gonna decommission one and turn it into like a flywheel. I'm not the technical person, as you can tell, so.
May I just add one more thing about the Mile High Line?
That's. just-
Don't forget, when they put it there originally, which was incredibly stupid. Because it's 5 feet above the sea level.
Yeah.
So the first tsunami that's gonna come in, guess what, how much power we have?
None.
None,
Right.
okay, so that ought to be a big
The
issue to
sighting.
think about.
The
Jason?
sighting was definitely a problem,
Situation.
yeah.
Just for clarification, because I don't get to you, who are you?
Oh,
No,
I'm up next. I seem to have kicked off a large conversation here.
I didn't know you were.
I can do my piece
we still.
now, so we can stay on.
Okay,
on
thanks,
the-
Jason.
on the program. So, yeah, my name's Brad Albert and I started a company called Rising Sun Solar in 2003. And ran that company until 2018 and like exited and my partner still runs that company. And when I started that, there was 7 grid tie systems on Maui. And now statewide, over 40% of all single family detached homes, or actually more than that, have solar. So like we've come a long way. I moved here in 2002. And back then there was a lot more solar hot water going on. I did solar hot water also. And then after I left my company, I went and I stood up a program here for a company called Swell Energy, which is something called virtual power plants. And so like the idea there is to export power to the grid from your batteries when the grid needs it. This is another way of sort of sharing battery power from homes and businesses with the grid. And then the utility pays for that power. So rather than potentially generating power with firm generation, you can fill some of that capacity with distributed battery power. And unfortunately, that company went out of business. And that program closed. And the people that's enrolled in that program enrolled in another program called Battery Bonus. That's run by the utility company. And I actually left Swell and went to work for the US Department of Energy for the Loan Programs Office for a few years, specializing in virtual power plants. And so just to step away from Maui for a second, like the shortage of energy is a national issue, and the Department of Energy is looking at like, they run nuclear, they sort of like not just like everything to do with nuclear is under the Department of Energy, but like, they're making sure that we have enough power for the country, whether it's gas to run cars or, the electrical grid. And so like what they are looking at is that there's an energy shortage between now and 2030 nationally. And that's because we're electrifying. And that's even outside of all of the data center stuff that's happening now. Because this was like 4 years ago, and the energy, wasn't even seeing as much data center action as we've seen in the last few years. And so one of the short-term solutions is virtual power plants. And it's a fancy way of saying demand response. So like right now in this building, they could, be getting paid money potentially to not like heat hot water, because right about now is when peaks occur at 7 o'clock. And so like they could get paid to not run their hot water heater, but they could also get paid to export energy from their batteries if they had it, and or from their electric car, or just not charge your electric car. So virtual power plants is like Brad's specialty. And like that's something I've become, specialized in. But then it looked like, and unfortunately, the Democrats didn't stay in office. And so the whole sort of mission of the Department of Energy has changed. And in other words, we were really leaning into virtual power plants, into renewable energy, and it seems like they've taken a new direction now under Trump. And so I went to work for a company called Nexamp that specializes in community solar, which is another kind of cool thing, talking to the community here. And the idea there is to like site, they used to be utility scale, but like now let's just say it's like 15 to 20 acres of land in a community. And the people who are generally low to moderate income households in the community get a discount off of the power that's generated there. So there's a capacity limit, but the people in the census area around that community solar plant benefit from it first. And if the program's not enrolled, then they widen the net. And unfortunately, all of those deals that I was working on didn't move forward. So now Brad is unemployed as of February. But actually not. One of the projects I was working on was a microgrid project, and I was able to sell that project. I'm consulting. And so like I get to say I'm a consultant, which I was actually a consultant at Department of Energy as well. So that's Brad's, but like I'm here to sort of just bring you up to speed on renewable energy in general. And like really what matters to you is or if you don't have solar on your house and you were considering it, the One Big Beautiful bill essentially ended the residential solar tax credits. And so if you wanted to self-purchase and get a tax credit, which is 30% federal tax credit, that ended as of 2025. But lease companies that can lease you a system can still take the tax credits. So you could lease a system from a company like Sunrun, or there's other companies in the market that do leases. I would say buyer beware a little bit about leases and know what you're getting into there. But if you own a business, you also can still do it, but it's a little tricky. And so this is unfortunate for renewable energy in Hawaii, because this was a big driver on why people would install solar on their homes. And then we thought the state would lean in and actually, sort of help fill that gap. And the governor had a executive order last year where he wanted to mandate 10,000 systems a year between now and 2030, 10,000 each year, which was an aggressive goal to begin with. And without the federal credit, we're not very likely to get there. But then just about a week ago, they passed the budget bill. And in that budget bill, they are sunsetting the solar tax credits for Hawaii as well. So there's a 35% state tax credit. And that is now capped at $40 million a year. And the average was about $120 million a year. But because this year things are slowing down, and now because this tax credit changed, I think the net result of that is you're not going to get nothing if you do a system, but you're likely to get half or less than half, is Brad's estimate. And I should say this, I'm part of different nonprofits and everything, but I'm currently just speaking as Brad, the consultant, and not on anyone else's behalf. But and I'll let you ask a question in a second, just about finish with my spiel. We probably went over 10 minutes. The point is that there's not a lot of incentives currently for solar. But if you do own a business, or if you still are interested in getting solar in your house, you may want to look into a lease. And like it should be that like you could monetize as a business the federal credit this year if you did it right. It's a little tricky. And the state tax credit, you're not gonna get nothing. You're gonna get something. And my estimate's probably like, we'll see where it turns out. And there's
The
some.
businesses still get the credit federally for a year or two?
So what's complicated is that you would have to have purchased the materials by July 4th, which was the date that the one big beautiful bill, or
Last year.
something called safe harbor the material. So you don't have to complete your project. You have to buy about 10% of the, you could buy the panels, you could buy, some portion of things and show it. But there's also what's called a FEOC. I'm sorry for these acronyms, FEOC restriction, which is foreign entities of concern, which essentially boils down to like, you can only have a certain percentage of the content and everything to do with your system, which is going to have batteries and solar panels and, racking and everything, that is not made in China. So like China is a foreign entity of concern. There's others like North Korea, but they don't make any solar stuff. So it's really just, for the most part, that you can't have more than, you have to have at least 50% or more roughly. The problem isn't that you can't get that. The problem is it's not totally clear how to prove it. And it's a little bit like it's opened up the door for a lot of uncertainty for investors anyway. But companies like Sunrun and these lease companies, they've safe harbored all the equipment and you can go out and buy a solar system from them. That's probably where the rubber meets the road for most of you. If anyone's considering doing it as a business, you can call Brad as a consultant.
And don't forget, it still saves you a lot of money in the long run. It just may take a little longer to pay back than when the tax credits are going into that.
Yeah. Sorry, yeah.
I actually have a question for people. I know that folks had like a buyback program in the past. I'm wondering why that.
Buyback for solar?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so that was the net energy metering program, and that was like a program to incentivize solar to put on residential homes and things like that, because it was not as abundant.
It costs more.
And it was more expensive back then.
And yeah, I mean,
So that was a program that was not meant to be permanent. It was meant to get people to install solar and then have that on their household. And then there was a time period where I think that program had to end.
in 2015.
2015 now, and then that's when other programs started to. So the buyback is different tiers now. It's not like any other program was like very robust in those times to get people to get the solar.
Yeah, I mean, I think like back then, you just would, if you exported a kilowatt hour or a kilowatt, you got credited at retail, and when you purchased it, you got credited, or you purchased at retail. So it was always like, I could make power during the day and export it, but now you would store it in your battery and just self-consume it. However, the next iteration of that is virtual power plant. So now they're willing to actually pay you to export power, but not just any time of the day when the grid needs it. And so at the end of the day, like today, I feel like if all of these other incentives hadn't gone by the wayside, and that's sort of the last thing actually. So the virtual power plant program in existence today is not very lucrative and not a lot of people signed up for it. The one before, which was sort of an emergency, another acronym, EDRP, Emergency Demand Response Program, they were paying a lot for that. And so a lot of people signed up. We got about 45 megawatts, 40 to 50 megawatts out of that program in 2 years. That's sort of statewide. But that program, essentially they were paying you quite a bit of money upfront and every month, and crediting you at retail when you provided the energy. So the PUC is having they've opened a docket to sort of fix that program, and the hope is that they'll do that. And so like all things considered, I think that if you have just call it a fair grid services or virtual power plant program, and you had these other incentives, you're ahead, in my opinion, now versus net metering, because you have backup power too. And we all know that the power goes out sometimes. And
I think it evolved with technology because it was more expensive back then, which is why we do it to incentivize people. But now with battery, people want to keep that for their own home, right? And then you can also get credit for that. So there's different programs based on different technologies that are being used. right now, batteries are becoming more affordable.
So if I can just add to that, because we're one of the people who put in batteries and didn't go with HECO's program because HECO was going to pay us nothing, well, 9 or 10 cents or something for our power, but when we use it ourselves, you pay 42, 43 cents per kilowatt. And so if they're going to pay me 9 cents, why would I do that? I'll just use it myself because then I'm not paying the 42 cents. So if they don't pay what he said, retail, the word retail is really important, right? So if they're not going to pay me the 42 cents for my power when I give it to them, why would I give it to them? Because I can just use it myself at 42 cents. It saves me that 42 cents on the bill. So that's why the battery bonus or whatever, they keep changing the names and having new programs, trying to find the best way for them to make money and for us to sign up.
Yeah.
And I think the only way it's ever going to sign up is if HECO pays retail for that.
And
when they really need the power.
I
When
would
they
have
don't
to
need the power, they don't have to pay for it at all.
say like somewhat in HECO's defense, like the PUC ultimately is the one that designed the program.
That's
and
the
HECO's
Public
is-
Utilities Commission.
Yeah, so I mean, and I think that and now they've realized that the program that they created was not successful, and so they're like wanting to fix it.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's a good point, because we are regulated by the Public Utilities Commission. So when we propose things, they're looking at total cost for all residents. So a lot of times when, you know, the retail rate is like residents, you know, we can have solar. They use the convert all of that. So that's why they're sometimes we can really cool. Yeah, that is. Of course.
Yeah, again, you want to run the meeting, I don't know how to call on.
7, and I know, we're gonna have breakout groups about this too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well, we're
so-
sort of greasing the knowledge here so we can have great breakouts where we can have individual discussions on topics that you want to talk about. So if someone wants to talk about LNG, we can have a topic and just talk about that. You want to talk about eco rates? Maybe Shannon would be willing to sit down with you and talk about, you know, what the rates are and how they're determined. It's extraordinarily complex because they're a utility, which means they're regulated by the PUC, who actually is supposed to listen to us. They don't listen to us very well because it's complicated to talk to the PUC, the way it's set up. And we're trying to learn that ourselves. It's a highly complicated system, but HECO's not allowed to make more than a certain profit, and you know, and so it's really complicated, frankly.
I didn't ask about that, but there's very simple.
No,
Someone trying to
I
speak.
don't know if they're actually trying to speak or just accidentally.
She's gonna mute.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Manual unmute.
What I wanted to ask, you know, the president does not want oil to be pushed out of the way by
Renewable.
electricity. You know, they don't want cars that don't
burn oil.
burn oil. And I think that goes on to everything that generates energy that is not, you know, burning coal or
Yeah.
burning oil or burning
Or
gas.
LNG.
And I think that's a real problem because he's he's the boss, you know, and he sets that down. And if the people don't do what he wants, you know, they fire him.
I mean, kind of the thing that, you know, solar especially has going for it is it's just the cheapest thing right now. And so it can't always like fill the need for firm power, but like we said, that's really the minority of power. And even in Hawaii now, like we're a renewable dominant grid, like we're becoming more and more renewable dominant, and you're gonna maybe need a certain amount. But the president can say whatever he wants. At the end of the day, like I think all utilities have to like, you know, essentially like manage cost and provide the lowest cost options for the ratepayers. So
Yeah,
you see like even this year and even with what's going on with Trump, like there's like solar is still really the most affordable, but like with these subsidies going away now, it's still less expensive, but a lot of the projects that were planned are canceled because they were planned based on certain economics. The investors that, you know, were going to invest millions of dollars in a power plant thought they were going to get a certain return and certain tax incentives, and now they're not. So I think this is only making this power shortage worse that I spoke about before, because I would say like due to the one big beautiful bill, and again, this is Brad's estimate, but it's probably in the ballpark. Like the projects like over the next 5 years, the ones that were gonna happen this year and next year, and maybe the following year, they were able to like pull all those in. But we're losing like about half. Like, so the ones that are further out, just they're not able to like get them done soon enough to meet the deadlines.
So let me add something. Yeah, and irrespective of what President Trump wants in terms of energy policy, the last couple of years, the vast majority of new electricity capacity in the country has been renewables, and that's been largely solar with some wind. And the US Department of Energy, it was before Trump, the Energy Information Administration predicts that that will continue in the near future. So markets matter, state energy policy matters, local governments. It's not just what the federal government says.
Good to hear. So you had your hand up. You want to say something? A question. What's your name again?
Mark.
Mark.
Seeing something, the percentage of vehicles running, EVs, electric vehicles is growing, but at the same time, the availability of used EV batteries is also growing. And I'm wondering to know if anyone on the panel or ECO are aware of any program with like a battery exchange or a place where people can buy or turn in or exchange used EV batteries as a backup system for both home solar and business solar.
It's sort of chicken or the egg a little with this, because like, the EV cars are relatively new in terms of there hasn't been a huge market for recycling them yet, so no one's gone out and invested in the recycling. And it may have to be like, when you go buy a car battery, you have to recycle your old one, and there's a fee for it that's part of the purchase price. And so I think we probably need more regulation to force recycling programs.
Yeah,
But-
Tesla claims they recycle all their batteries, but who knows if they actually do it.
But I was gonna say like there's no known on Maui anyway, battery recycling for car batteries that I'm aware of. But that's not to say that something couldn't happen, in the future.
What's your name?
Nikhil Ananda. Thank you for the panel. Just as a little comment about the exchange of batteries. The company that's the Chinese renewable energy company that's becoming the largest, they're banned from coming in the States. They have a system where people drive their car into this, instead of charging the battery, they drive it into this place. Car sits there, the robot goes underneath, pulls the battery out, the used battery, puts in a new battery, and they drive away. I don't know all the other details, but just the creativity. A comment was just made about the federal government can't really impact. But you look at what's happening, you mentioned a little bit of wind power. And wind power might be twice more developed if we didn't have this current anti-renewable administration. So there's other things obviously going on on the side.
Government, by the way, has a huge impact. Energy policy moves the market, and that's what the whole thesis of what I said is, without the federal tax credit and the state solar tax credit, like the amount of people that are going to choose to go solar is going to go down significantly, and there's going to be a lot of projects that get canceled. And so like I don't mean to say that. All I was saying is like, in spite of the hostility towards renewables from the Trump administration, there's still a lot of solar going in, and it's still the lowest cost option, even though the incentives have changed.
And if you had the opposite, where you had an administration that was pushing it and incentivizing it, if my grandmother retires, she'd be a truck. So I understand this is the reality today.
I mean, I was working at the Department of Energy, and people would say, Brad, how's it going? And I was like, look, if the Democrats stay in office for one more term, the energy transition will be complete, because it'll be such a part of the economy, you can't unwind it. And even now, that's what I'm saying. It's like, it's not as complete as it should have been, but it's so far along that like, there's so much momentum and the price is already so low that it's not like just because Trump is hostile towards renewable energy, it's just gonna go away. But it would have been accelerated and we would have gotten to build factories and make a lot of the batteries and the solar panels here. And when you talk about US jobs and the green economy, like that, I saw it happening firsthand. Like the loan programs office was like, it had a huge amount of money to loan. And was loaning like the minimum loan amount was $100 million, but it was like loaning billions of dollars to build EV like battery manufacturing facilities. Like, you know, they loan like Tesla, for example, was started because of the loan programs office. So it's, and you know, that was under a different administration.
Everyone else's funds.
Well, and on that note, like, if the United States, like, slows down, the rest of the world continues to develop better renewable energy products. And so like, not to continue like the battery thing, but these are kind of a step below what they call balcony solar. And like in Europe, balcony solar is a normal thing. You can have a battery like this and a foldable panel and plug it into the wall to charge your, like to recharge the grid in a similar way that we look at solar as it currently is here. And so we still, as Hawaii, can look at the rest of the world internationally of what's going on and try to implement that stuff here, because I think local control is really what's important in this conversation. Because what happened in DC is so outside of what we have power for in this room. But as somebody who just started showing up to meetings and then suddenly started getting put in charge of stuff, it's really easy to engage with energy issues if you're tenacious enough and like just keep showing up to things and asking questions, because there's no stupid questions when it comes to energy.
Wait. So we can continue having a discussion where people are asking questions, or we can actually move towards having discussions that are more focused on topics. And the way this is done is each of us will be at a table and you can come and go to different tables and enjoy that discussion, move between tables. But also if one of you wanted to have a table on something, you could have a table and we'll put that there, and then people would come and go from your table. The requirement, though, if you lead, is to stay at your table unless there's nobody there, and also to include the Zoom people, because we're gonna, you know, there's breakouts on Zoom, and they can choose your room, and there'll be a Zoom person at every table with a device, so they can, you know, and you have to ask them if they have questions and allow them to participate to make this as good a hybrid meeting as possible. Hybrids are always the most difficult.
So pivot to the discussion, the breakouts.
Well, I thought you might want to talk, if people want to hear, do you want to hear about their little batteries and what you could, there's a 5-minute presentation on that, and then we could go to breakouts. Also, please eat the food. Don't be shy, just get up and go have some food. Same thing, use the bathrooms whenever you need to.
I'm gonna grab the other one.
Yeah. So thanks everybody for your.
There's a comment.
Casey, yeah,
A minute to set that up.
it's gonna take like 5
I
seconds.
think it's the upside down.
Plug-in solution, wonderful solution.
Setting it up, it'd be helpful to know if this room, like,
They'll die.
you prefer the big group discussion where we just kind of wing it and figure out what we're gonna talk about as a big group? Or would you like to do the open space and have more like smaller group focused on these topics or any others?
Yeah, right on. He's
Cause
finished.
you're welcome to
Thank you.
suggest topics if we wanna do the breakouts, but it's like kind of a medium-sized group where we might be able to manage a big group.
Lauren apparently has to leave. Could she
Yes.
present for 2 minutes
Yeah.
first? Is that all right with you?
Just while you were
I'll set
setting
up,
up.
yeah.
Yeah, because I'm Oahu based, so I have to go to the airport. But I did want to share, we have an energy justice citizens guide that
She's
we have
from
been.
Sierra Club.
Oh, yes, Sierra Club. And if anybody's familiar, thank you. Our niche is really getting people to like activate people, but also make it as easy as possible to understand and demystify these very complex processes. So this energy justice citizen guide was like 2 years in the making, and it's set into 4 standalone modules, which is really to be a tool for community who want to engage in energy development and planning. And who are the decision makers? What are the processes? We heard like about the PUC. If you want to know what the PUC is, it's in here. Who are the decision makers, the influencers, if not decision makers? And you guys are all influencers as well in that. So it's a free guide that I have a QR code. And so like, you know, over morning coffee, you can really acclimate yourself into how this all works, because I think in a way it has been complex to make it so people can't be activated and engaged, even though we're impacted by them. So the really intention behind this is how can we all in this room feel comfortable making, you know, having these acronyms, but also just using our voice, because we live with this every day. So please, I just wanted to, it's in the back, the QR code's here, and it has a little bit of what it's about, you know, but I think the processes module sounds like it would be very beneficial for people who are getting started. So just wanted to share that with you.
All right, this will be really quick, and then it's gonna take a really long time because I'm gonna go rest. So this is the smallest battery. I would say, like, we've tested all of these on like refrigerators, is sort of the appliance that we go to. Everybody has a fridge.
So you have a program providing this for people who are initially fire survivors, and maybe they're trying to help people to know what this means and actually get a grant through
Yeah.
Rotary and stuff.
So we got a Rotary grant to test this idea by giving these to fire survivors. And we didn't, of course, you can't predict outages, but we've gone through many big outages since we started distributing these. And the feedback that we're getting is primarily that it builds peace of mind, but also has one of our participants' son is on many different types of medical device machines, and she's able to sleep better at night, knowing that if the power goes out, she doesn't have to run down the stairs to help her son breathe. And so these can be lifesavers, but they can also just be food savers too. This is one that's better for like camping, charging a phone, because the like capacity for it, like it can't really heat water a lot. It can't power a fridge for too long. This one will power my fridge just off the solar panels alone, and then on a full charge, probably like 8 hours, sometimes longer, but I have a very inefficient fridge. Which is kind of rule number 1 of energy is like work on efficiency first and lower your usage, but fridges are expensive. So I'll plug in a couple of different things. So the nice thing about these EcoFlow batteries is they're kind of like, you don't have to do a lot of math, and it tells you on this screen here, like what you have plugged in at the moment will power for 99 hours because it's just a phone. If I plug in this air purifier and turn it on, then it'll show the output of 28, 23, so it's still pretty low. And it doesn't really change much on like how, because for me, it's just easier to think of like, how many hours will this last rather than like kilowatts and megawatts. It's a lot of math. So for like a non-technical person like me, hours is an easy way to contextualize it. When I first tested this, I plugged in a bouncy castle, and it said it would run the bouncy castle for 1.5 hours. So that's a good way of like measuring it, I guess. So air purifier, 23 watts, and it'll run that for a really long time. Okay, and then I'll unplug that. Once I start the rice, I can't really unplug the rice, so yeah.
So
That's
That's Shay, when it comes to yourself.
but what I was gonna say is also, these are these relatively cheap.
This is
So
500.
500. The bigger one, which a lot of people prefer, 1,000 watts. I have that permanently plugged into my refrigerator, and 2 solar panels that will use solar panels, I want to mention in a minute also. And so basically, and I'm on time of use, so that means that between 9 and 5, my electric rates are relatively cheap. I don't know, 21 cents per kilowatt hour. Between 5 p.m. and midnight, they're like 40 some. 60 now, 60. So I do my own distributed energy thing where I plug in my fridge all the time. When the sun comes up, I don't have to. It's running my refrigerator the entire day and is charging back up to 80%. And the way these work is you don't want to actually go up to 100 and then 0, just like we did fire. Immediately. Then I discharge it at 5 p.m. when it's 60 cents per kilowatt hour. So I'm paying 20 cents per kilowatt hour, which is about 50 cents per kilowatt hour. I also have become extremely obsessive. I feel and I myself off of looking at my energy because we got out of hand. But I did very simply say, and Ian's not allowed to use air for anymore. But I saved $15 on my electric bill last, and we don't have kids at home. We work at home, so we have a lot of people. So our bill is normally like 80 something. So I actually dropped my electric bill by like 20%. I don't know if we're gonna do it again. It's like I said, let's try to be more relaxed about it. But thinking about like the Tesla Powerwall and things like that, that obviously are very useful. Not everybody has that $20,000-$30,000. Also, they use solar panels. So I think it was Jenny Potter who told me there are going to be 3 million used solar panels in the state of Hawaii over the next 5 years. So going back to what Stacy said about not only do we not have to like follow what's going on federally and but we also are going to have different issues other people have. We're going to have all these solar panels, but in our project, we're getting them for free because people are trying to get rid of them. So when we help out a fire survivor, it can be a renter, it can be a permanent resident, it can be somebody who doesn't have a lot of money, but they can have this $500 or $1,000 battery plus a free solar panel, and they can not be completely off-grid, but they can cover a lot of stuff and of course deal with the power.
Yeah, so I have mine connected to those used solar panels at home. I obviously can't bring them because they're heavy and big. But I did bring the foldable ones that EcoFlow sells. And they connect in the same way. So we connect these together and we have these fun little cords. And I bought an adapter one because each different brand, of course, has a different plug. Because of course they do. And then they just plug in back here. But you can do both with these. So I can charge it from the wall and the panel. So if I'm not getting a lot of sun, I just have my fridge plugged into it. And
So Hiko's your firm energy.
yeah, so Hiko's my firm power for that. And for the most part during the day, my fridge is running on solar. And so these all just plug into the back over here. And like Shay said, we panels for free from right now. We're getting them from HMU Energy because the big solar utility scale solar projects, when it drops in efficiency, that's a big expense for them. But it's kind of like buying an old iPhone, like it still works. So you know, it's free. I'm gonna take the free solar panels, and a lot of this project is very much also inspired by Molokai because they do a much larger scale version of this for homesteaders because they don't have even access to the grid. So they'll take like probably the 2 times this size version of this and connect it to build a shed and use solar panels on top as the roofing. And that's how they run their stuff on the homestead.
And I also wanted to add, we know too that the solar installers, they're gonna be inundated with all these used solar panels, and nobody's yet recycling them. I think maybe some people are using that on the law.
The cost $25 to recycle. So
Right, so they're all being shipped to the mainland to be recycled, so that is an expense for the solar panels. So for them to be able to, even, and not all of them are, you know, but people keep offering us stuff now, and then we call a writer and write, like, oh, look that. You know?
there's a safety aspect to it, and you want to make sure it's a good panel.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like you can the 1 gen before iPhone, not 5 gens before iPhone. The big difference. But yeah, I'm gonna cook some rice with this thing. There's not really a lot to it, but you just turn it on. I already washed it and everything. And then this screen here will, so the rice pot, just turning it on, 625 watts. So that's 600 more watts than the air purifier. And that's because heating water takes a lot of energy. So like, when we first got this, we were plugging in like everything just to see how long it would take or how many watts it used. And that was how I finally convinced my husband to switch to LED lights for our Christmas lights. Because his Christmas display this battery could only run it for 2 hours. And that was enough to be like, oh, maybe it's time to switch to LEDs and put less air blowers and figure out a way we're not gonna be spending a ridiculous amount of money on energy in December. But we did try to run all of our Christmas stuff.
So if we stay, we get to eat rice, is that?
Yeah,
the-
I mean, I'm gonna make fried rice tomorrow, so.
Oh,
That's my real ulterior motive is I need day-old rice.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Before we go into the small, parties, can I just mention one more thing? It's my understanding that our windmill and some of the solar stuff that we have here has been sold to BlackRock. Is anybody aware of that?
You know, Shayna?
We changed companies, so we're not very,
Yeah.
somebody doesn't handle this, so.
That's fine.
Yeah, so I think one of the.
Both of them, have been sold.
Oh, both of them.
Yes. So guess what's gonna happen? That means somebody else, ETF's gonna now be part of these things there. There's gonna be publicly traded to make money on this thing with. Which of course means it's not gonna be cheaper for us to buy this thing, you know. They're gonna force their price out there.
Well, it has to go through the PUC, to be
they're,
fair.
they're committed to a contract, like they can't just change the price.
Well, but it's, I know, but that's ways, you know, all of a sudden, they're gonna say, oh, we have a problem, we're gonna shut everything off.
So that was the windmills at Kaiava, like above Maawaya, is that what you're talking about? So,
Check which one, I thought it
or Washington?
Okay.
I was gonna just say one more thing, Stacy. So like, think of this, like, again, $500 to $1,000. And this is like, in an emergency, you're gonna be able to like charge your phone if you wanna use it for your refrigerator, depending on how long the power outage is. But if you do have solar panels and it is sunny the next day, you know, but again, to me, like, these are good to offset your bill a little bit, like what Shannon's doing. Versus like, you're spending a lot more money, but you know, it could be financed by a lease company or something, and then you're really offsetting your entire bill. And you really could run your whole house in a power outage. But this stuff works, and I have one too, and like, for me, it's sort of like belt and suspenders, and I have an EV car now too. It's like, you know, it's just another thing, because you might have to leave,
Yeah.
and then you
this
could
is
take it
good
with
feedback.
you know, so.
In my resilience kit, if we're sheltering in place, you can power like maybe one appliance off of those. Not the most comfortable, but you can live off of
Yeah.
it. And then if I'm having to evacuate, this is easy to throw.
You can charge it in the car.
You-
while you're driving.
There's a car charger for it, actually.
But-
Yeah, but we have the bigger one. Also, there's like double this size and double this capacity. I personally don't like that one because the only way I'm moving it is if my husband is home. So, I like being able to carry it.
Well, and they also come in much bigger sizes.
They have
Costco had one
wheels.
for like
Ugh.
$2,000. And again, they're still way cheaper.
Yeah.
than some-
There's like a $4,000 one, so, I like to tell people, this is like your intro to solar power.
So that's, maybe that's a good moment for me, because I never did my topic, of course.
You know, sorry.
But that's okay. I just want to say one thing. The Hawaiian Energy Conference, there were a lot of things discussed. We've touched on most of them, but one interesting thing, we had someone come in one of the panels, and he was from Puerto Rico, where they had a massive hurricane and they were without power in many places for 6 months without power. And they've been rebuilding, but what they're rebuilding, from what I understood from Ferdinand, is basically microgrids. So every little community is getting its own battery and solar and wind or whatever microgrids, and then they can interconnect them. And they have a few laws. One is they allow something called wheeling. Now, here's another concept you've never heard of probably. Wheeling means allowing to share, like if I generate power in my house and Brad lives beside me, I can't send my excess power to Brad. It's illegal. And that's because we don't allow wheeling here, which is sharing power. That's the word for sharing power. But wheeling is allowed in Puerto Rico as part of their law. And so they can just do that. And it does allow for that kind of sharing between people, allows better for microgrids. It also allows for potentially corporate interests to do it and take over and become their own utility, which is why it's sort of not allowed. So it has to be done carefully, because there's more about that than I know, but it's a concept that's very interesting. And it has a lot of ramifications for rates and all kinds of things. It's again, a complicated financial issue, but wheeling was something that they allow by law. They also by law allow net metering. in Puerto Rico, which keeps the prices down because I guess you're sort of getting retail for retail power, like I was talking about, which to me makes sense. I mean, that's the only way it's really gonna work. If you want to take some of my battery power, you got to pay me what I would get if I didn't use it myself. Only makes sense. So. Let's see, Sally, is that you got your hand up there back there?
Yes, but I had a couple things to say. I also have these EcoFlow batteries. I actually have two of them. I have the one above that and the one slightly above that, not $4,000 one, but my husband's been running all his power tools on it. We're building a structure. He's been putting the whole darn, I mean, cement mixers, all of it, been running all of it on that. The other thing I wanted to know about CBREs.
The community solar.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Another acronym?
are they, is it, I saw there was a program being picked up, is that correct? Or
So
is that by the
community
state?
solar, and I can say this, I feel like, I don't like to always say like the gentleman over here, these guys are dumb or whatever, like, but it's, I would say that community solar in Hawaii so far has been an abject failure. Like the law, like the legislature directed the PUC in 2015 to create a community solar program. And to date, like we just don't have a meaningful amount of solar. And the whole idea really for community solar is to create some relief for low to moderate income households. So you can do that a lot of different ways, but the price has only gone up and no one's been able to really enroll, like no meaningful number of people have been able to enroll in a community solar program. So I mean, that would be something we should all be telling the PUC to do. And Governor Green's executive order was for 10,000 systems a year, and he wanted half of all of those to be low to moderate income. The only way you get there is community solar. And the other thing about community solar, just like this, is democratizing solar to renters and places where you don't have a roof, like, or you don't have access to solar for whatever reason, you're shaded. So it's really allowing more people to participate. And it's unfortunate that it's since 2015, it's 2026, and we have nothing to show for it. Like, it's really not, it's unfortunate.
And on that note, since we do prioritize fire survivors, most of our, I'd say probably half our participants are in temporary housing at the moment. So it's something that they're able to move with them as they continue to get bounced around from housing to housing.
Really?
Yeah, I had one comment about pump storage. I saw a study with Maui Electric from the year 2000. And the biggest problem was, that 20 years, that all of the various entities involved agree on that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like 10 years at least to get just a regular.
You're saying that it's a long, like, it wouldn't be something you could get done in 3 years or 5 years. It's going to take longer.
That's about environment's a big deal. This and state, federal, and local.
But like, I've known you for over 20 years. You probably had yours since we had just started 20 years ago. We'd be somewhere further. You got to start at some point.
The nice thing about if the community decides they want that is that it lasts for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
Other places, it's
Less
such
moving
a
parts.
great resource for, the batteries have to be recycled. So that's one of the, it's a really, you only would need one for all of Maui Island. Because you'd want one big one because there is no way you build 4 of them because there's no, the cost of building it is the cost, right? So you want to build just one. And we can ask Ben here, he's an engineer, he and I looked into that, so. Yeah.
Somebody on the Zoom wants to speak.
Yeah, I was gonna say Eric is there, but I also am just wondering, in terms of wheeling, is that something that the state legislature would have to handle? Because
We'll have to go through the PUC,
Actually, no, there was a wheeling docket and they've approved wheeling, but there's intergovernmental wheeling and then just wheeling, and Genesis can't really wheel power to like an individual necessarily, and you're using the line. So like HECO would get paid for the use of their line. And so like all of that is we are about to have wheeling here, but whether it's really going to be similar to the flavor of wheeling that is in Puerto Rico, I think it's not gonna be that flavor, but at least like, it's like affordability, and so like the state itself should not have to, like if it has land that it wants to put solar on and it wants to wheel power to itself, it should be able to do that, and there's no limit on the size. With there's a cap of 2 megawatts right now for like other types of wheeling, so if I wanted to put up a power plant and sell it to, I don't know, the college, like I could do that, but typically developing land and doing a 2 megawatt project just never pencils. So like you need to do a bigger project when you develop land. So I don't think there's gonna be a lot of initial wheeling going on other than intergovernmental wheeling, but it's a step in the right direction. Like we're at least moving in a direction to like, I guess just maximize. The state wants to go 100% renewable. They should, be able to use the unused land for renewable energy and then sell it to themselves.
Yeah, so in wheeling, the electrons just follow the path of least resistance, so it depends who's all connected to who. So, you don't necessarily guarantee if you're sending excess electricity in the system where it's going to end up, but it's going to be useful somewhere.
Well, you're just like the person you're wheeling it to is getting the credit for it. Like there's a meter, so you're just getting the.
And then someone has to pay for using Pico's lines because they're not my lines or the other person's lines. So that's like getting complicated financially, to figure out the numbers and stuff.
Yeah, but that's
there's an
literally
open
what
docket right now. Right?
That's what they're.
The PUC is looking at it.
Yeah.
So we can testify on that right now.
Yeah, but I don't. Do you know? I don't know where stage it's at. It feels like it's hit a bit of a slow, there's been a bit of a slowdown. Like they.
Yeah, I want to go to Christina, and maybe if there's a question in the chat too that you've noticed that needs to be asked. There isn't? Okay, well, maybe we go to Eric then. Eric?
Yeah, thanks so much. I just wanted to go back quickly to an
Raise your
earlier.
hands up. Did you want to speak?
Yeah, are you all able to hear me?
You can hear.
Yes.
Easily.
Yes.
Great. I just wanted to provide some
Yeah.
context on
Go
an
ahead.
earlier discussion on rooftop solar. And so why doesn't HECO pay us what we pay for electricity? So this was talked about a little bit, but I think it's really interesting because we all think about the electric grid from the perspective of our own house. And when you look at the electric grid from the perspective of the entire island, it looks very different. So if I own solar panels, of course, I want to get full retail price for what those produce. But what you're paying to HECO really isn't just that cheap solar power. You're paying for some cheap solar power from solar farms on Maui. You're paying for the fossil fuel as well. A large part of your bill is that oil price volatility, how much the price of oil is going up and down. So that's why our electric bills are all going up like crazy right now. So it's really more than just the power that you're also paying for the grid upkeep. So if you were to pay full retail, that also means that everyone who doesn't have solar panels on their house is part of their bill is now going to be paying you for that full retail. So if, for example, me as a renter, if all of my neighbors are getting paid full retail for their solar, my price of electricity goes up like crazy. So there's really all these equity considerations, and how much someone should get paid for solar on their roof is really a tough question, how to value that. And I think it's one we're still trying to figure out. So we used to be extremely generous, and that led to Hawaii having more solar than almost anywhere else in the country. I think more than anywhere else as a percentage. But now we're really trying to find that correct number. Perhaps the PUC has gone too far the other way now. But definitely trying to find that balance.
Yeah, and just for clarity, like there hasn't been net metering since 2015, and I don't think net metering is the debate. The debate is when you provide energy to the grid during like a what we call a virtual power plant program, and they're saying, hey, we really need this power from 7 to 9. They're like, okay, I will export my power to you at 7 to 9, but if you don't give me retail credit, but you give me a bill credit, those two things cancel each other out. And to Genesis' point, like, you're like, why should I do this? Like, I'm not, like, I may actually be making nothing or very little, and now my battery's drained, and if the power goes out, I might not have as much battery power for me. So you have to compensate customers enough to want to do that, and it starts with like allowing or paying them retail when they provide grid services. Because for a customer, all of this stuff is confusing enough as it is. If you're like, hey, I've got a battery, the utility's saying, if I export, they'll pay me, like, just say $25 a month for my battery, right? And you go, okay, that's a good deal, right? I get $25. But then if I export below retail, then I'm actually losing money there. And then those two things kind of cancel each other out. So the mistake in the program, in my opinion, was that they stopped giving retail credit for a while. No one signed up. Then they gave them retail credit, but they only gave them a little bit of money, and still very few people signed up. So it's a matter of giving people enough incentive to want to do it, but not too much. And so, like, I think you were saying that too, like, you know, with net metering, maybe that was overly generous, but again, like, we are leading the country in the amount of renewable power we have, and that's the state's goal. So it's like, you know, you got to get there some way, some.
Sure. Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think the point I was trying to make is that both HECO, the PUC, the Hawaii State Energy Office, we have to think of the entire grid, not from the perspective of individual users. And then in terms of progress to renewable energy goals, which thank you for bringing that up, because we are bound by state law to work towards 100% renewable by 2045. On Maui, we think we can reach it by 2035. And a large part of that is utility scale solar. So compared to Kauai, Maui actually has much less utility scale solar. A large part of Kauai's success has been at utility scale. And I posted a link in the chat to our credit task force, which to go back to some of the discussion of tax credits, is working to make sure all of these utility scale projects get completed in time to make sure that they get those tax credits and are able to provide cheaper power to the grid. And that lowers everyone's bill.
So Eric, I was, just to throw in a little bit more, fire on the, or coal on the fire or whatever. My understanding is that the amount of, the equity issue has been far overstated. The one that you just stated, the amount of increase in other people's bills would be very minimal for if we were to incentivize people better, and that we would get to our renewable goals, which would then be cheaper for everyone because the price of oil and gas and whatever we're burning is much higher and keeps going up. And so that it's kind of like overstated as a reason why we shouldn't have better payments for renewables. And so I just want to say that out loud, and because it's often used as an excuse to like stop the discussion about getting retail power rates, which I think are important. So
yeah, I think this is highly contested, and really these discussions are happening in California and Hawaii that are really the leaders here, and we don't really have other grids that are at this level of renewable penetration. And I think it's a tough question. I think it's often more of an art than a science. We don't have this published anywhere, but some of our economists did a back of the envelope calculation, and they estimate that someone without solar pays about $5 a month to pay for NEM and other folks' solar. So for me as a renter, I have no opportunity to put solar. So for someone like me, it matters. Again, this is hotly contested. I mean, I don't have numbers in front of me, but I think this is something we're trying to figure out as the state. And we really are a leader here in these discussions of net metering, wheeling, and how to have a huge amount of renewables on the grid, how to maximize rooftop solar, and how to do so that both benefits individuals and the entire grid.
yeah, my question is, I don't know if there is anywhere else in the world or in the country where they have what system they have to incentivize landlords to put solar that they wouldn't benefit from, but their tenants would, on the roof of all these rentals. How can we actually help those who are renting, those who are lower income? Are there programs out there that would help that? and help us get towards our clean renewable goals? And I don't know the answer to that question. I don't know if you do, Eric.
Community,
Brad,
well, community solar is supposed to be
the answer.
for, for renters, but, the way the program was designed also wasn't really great because, there was no, it was instead of being like a tariff where it was like, you have to provide this much savings by putting this, community solar system in place, the bidder could say, well, I can just, provide 10% savings or 15% savings, but what I've seen is like, unless you're gonna give 20 to 30% savings on someone's bill, they're not really getting enough impact to like make a difference in their life. So like that is, but to your point, like, as far as renters go, like the way to help renters might be community solar, or people maybe don't all pay the same price. Like that's something other utilities look at doing too, which to your point would increase the cost for maybe the haves, so people that earn above a certain income pay a little bit more, and people that are below a certain income pay a little bit less, and you don't go build all these community solar projects, you just do more utility scale solar. That could be an option, but that's not like currently on the table as far as I know.
Dick, go ahead. Thanks for letting us know, Christina. Dick, just unmute yourself and go ahead and speak.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I have a question. I would like somebody in the state energy office to do some calculations that would take a look at the two major issues there. One is the solar electric panels, PV panels, and the other are batteries. What is the difference in overall cost to the state? Let's say putting up 10,000 rooftop solar panel, PV panel setups versus doing it in a central place where it's done on a utility scale. What will be the per kWh cost for each of those two things? So we start doing things efficiently. The same with batteries. Many people are putting in batteries in their home when it might be much, much cheaper to have utility scale batteries put in for the whole community. Is there anybody who can make those comparisons for us at the state level so we make the right policy decisions?
I think, I don't want to speak on behalf of the state, feel free to jump in, but I don't think it's either or, it's both. Like, you don't allow customer choice. I can put solar in my house, but then you also need to do, utility scale, and to get anywhere close to our renewable energy goals, like you got to do maybe a little bit of both. That's like, but in terms of like cost, it gets, I think since we ended net metering, when, today, if you have a system and you export power, you're essentially exporting at roughly what a utility scale power plant might sell the power for. It's in the ballpark. So there's not a lot of ratepayer impact for me to have solar. But if I then want to share my battery, in a virtual power plant program, that's helping the grid. And then I would be compensated for that at a price that motivates me to want to do it, but also is typically below going out and building a whole nother power plant to serve that just peak demand. So it's like, it's not, it's a difficult question, but I think since net metering ended, it's not really like one is competing against the other. And I don't know if you agree with that.
I just think somebody should make because my guess is that there will be a wide disparity between having distributed 10,000 rooftops versus a central system, and 10,000, let's say, batteries versus some utility scale batteries. And we as a state should know which one will be more efficient and more economical for the state of Hawaii. And I don't think anybody's doing that calculation.
The other thing that's not priced in is resiliency. So like, there's these little batteries, but like I have a system on my house, and obviously like there's planned power shutoffs, there's weather events, and like I should be able to like, have resiliency in my home, and that's a benefit to the community too, because it's not just me, it might be the community center or the school or the hotel that has the ability to operate when the grid goes out. And that goes back to your microgrid comment and resilience. So like, again, these are not like, just sort of like simple math, and it depends how you wanna, look at it. But again, I think since net metering ended, there's not like a cost. Well, I can't say there's none, but there's a small cost to allow people to put solar on their house to other ratepayers, because you're no longer paying net metered rates, like you're no longer paying retail. Just at any time of the day to export power.
Yeah, I'm not asking who is doing the paying. I just wonder what is a more economical production system, and then begin developing policies, whether it be renters or homeowners or apartments or businesses. And you then you can make this. But right now we don't know which is a more economical way of doing things in Hawaii.
Yeah, I'll let Eric jump in. I don't know. Like I don't.
Eric,
I think we probably do know
Yeah.
quite a bit.
I mean, I think we do know that utility scale is cheaper. But as mentioned, there's other considerations such as resilience, but in terms of not how much you're paying for electricity, but in terms of how much it costs to build a system, it's going to be cheaper to build one 100 megawatt facility than 100 1 megawatt facilities, just to use totally made up hypothetical numbers. And again, to bring up the example of Kauai, which I hear mentioned a lot by folks on Maui, a large part of their success is these utility scale projects, and they have been very successful at stabilizing prices. They're currently second in the state in terms of the renewable portfolio standard. We just got the new numbers for 2025. They only lag behind Hawaii Island, and that is because of geothermal energy on Hawaii Island. Would it actually be okay if I shared my screen really quick?
Sure.
Yeah,
Or you can.
well, only if Christina lets you,
5 right now, so I just wanna do like a temperature check of the room, because it is supposed to be community led. Do we wanna go into breakout sessions so we can have more in-depth discussion, or is there a topic we haven't covered today that you guys wanna
Make it harder to listen. There's 4 or 5 people talking at the same time.
oh, they'll be
Yeah,
on
so
different
separate
rooms. Yeah, we're gonna scatter you.
I mean, raise of hands, do you guys wanna do the breakout rooms and do that? Or raise your hands for breakout rooms, or if you'd rather keep having this big group thing, we can do that. Okay.
So the breakout rooms, what would you like to talk about? Those who want to do breakout, because you could do that while the rest of the people stay here and have a general conversation.
Community.
Hmm?
Community.
Okay.
Pump storage.
Pump storage. Okay. Anybody else, their burning energy topic that you'd like to keep going on?
Geothermal. And what was Eric gonna say?
We'll get to that.
Just blew him off.
No, I think he's learning how to get it.
He wants
No,
to
no, no.
share his screen.
He wants to share his screen, so we're gonna let them figure out the tech, but I just wanted to. Eric works in the energy office. He's very accessible. You can also like schedule a meeting with him. I've met with him many times about a lot of things, so. I'm just trying to make sure we're discussing as much as we can at the time we have to get forward.
Yeah, I didn't see a request about who wanted to stay here. You just
Okay.
said who wanted to break out.
Well, I just also wanna know what topics, either way, that we.
Well, I'm assuming that people who didn't put their hands up want to stay here, but we could do the inverse. Who would like to stay here? Who would like to stay in the room and just talk in general? Yeah, so that's more than half. Okay, does that answer your question?
It wasn't just for me, it was just, that was offered, but then it was never, the vote was never taken.
Sorry.
People who want to break out could still break out.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
I
Yeah,
counted. But just since while Eric's figuring out how to share his screen on the Zoom, some other topics that like I generally discuss in these things is like. We've talked a lot about how we generate power, not a lot how we transmit that power. Affordability is a topic, resilience is a topic.
is there a topic someone in the audience would like to lead a group on? Mark?
This is not to lead a group on it. This has to do with what the topic that Eric is gonna bring up on the screen. And also that Brad and Kiko has brought up. I just wanted to point out that gravity batteries.
Gravity batteries.
You know, what is there has any study been done to factor in for peak demand draw from utility scale solar systems or indeed wind systems stored in a gravity battery that's like a tower, 30, 40, 50-foot tower that can either go above ground or below ground, and then in peak hours or hours of peak demand, then a utility could draw power from the gravity batteries that have a lifespan of around 35 years. But this, I was thinking this could be a lead up technology or an intermediary technology while a pump water storage system is being approved and constructed. So it has.
Yeah,
this
I don't
been
know why this
explored?
hasn't taken off more. I've heard good things. Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying I've heard good things about that, and there's also like air, like
Compressed air.
compressed air. But it just seems like the lithium ion batteries are like what everyone's doing more of, and I don't know if it's price or I don't
No,
think it's.
you're absolutely wrong. And I think the professor will tell you that, it's liquid, metal batteries, lithium is out.
Yeah.
That was last year. And that's still doing that.
All batteries are eliminating.
Lithium is out.
Graphene, let's go for graphene.
Will agree with me.
Yeah, there's a lot of.
You have liquid, right now, they're putting a 300 meg station in Texas. Where they're just using solar and batteries, and they're putting so many batteries in there that they're figuring out that it's cheaper to just have the batteries than anything else, when you have enough of them out there. They can support everything you want to with solar alone.
What I've been told.
But I think we're talking about the type of storage, like meaning a battery sounds more like a chemical battery. This is more of like a physical, like
The cement in the air that drops down, turns the
It's the same
turbine.
thing as the water.
Yeah, there's gravity battery.
Companies that do it.
To talk about, we have, on the Big Island, we have a lot of energy over there that we could use here. Right here,
There's the geothermal top.
geothermal, we could do that. That's
you're
a lot of
saying
stuff.
another undersea cable, like.
No,
No, he's not saying.
No.
He's just saying like they use on,
Oh,
not to take that.
RPS on the screen, just to
Oh.
close that nice loop, I guess.
You want to speak to that, Eric, real quick, so we can finish that topic? Eric?
Yep. Yeah. Sorry, y'all. Just wanted to share this real quick. I think it's useful to ground these discussions. So this is our progress for the last year for renewable energy. So on the left, we have it broken down by island and then the state as a whole. And how high the bar graph is what percentage of renewable energy that island generated in the last year. And then the colors are the type of resource. So you can see that light yellow is distributed PV or rooftop solar. The dark yellow or orange is utility scale. So you can see on Maui, 20% of all electricity last year was generated by rooftop solar. So that's huge. That's a huge victory right there. Only 8% by utility scale, and then wind generated about 13%. And you can see that Hawaii Island has the most renewables of any island, and that purple is the geothermal. And then on the right, this graph shows how much generation each island needs. So this really gives you a sense of how much power each island is using. So as you can see, Kauai has a very small amount of power that it uses. It's a very tiny grid. Maui is about 3 times as large. And then you can see that Oahu is a totally different beast. Takes a huge amount of power. It's really not comparable to the other islands at all in many ways because of how much power it requires. And then you can see on that graph on the right, that red is the amount of fossil fuel still used. So we've made a lot of progress, but we still have a really long ways to go. Thanks, and I'll pass it back to you all, and
Eric,
I put my email in the chat. Please feel free to reach out, and I'd be happy to share this graphic as well.
Eric, is this on the state energy office website too? Or is this?
I'm not sure if it's up yet. I'll check. And
Well, it's
I can share
2025,
this.
so it's pretty new.
Take a picture.
Yep, it's It's
Yeah.
slightly different than last year, and one final thing I'll note is that so in the last year, Hawaii went up 1% in terms of how much renewable energy we use, but the overall electricity we used also increased, so we actually burned more fossil fuel in 2025 than 2024 while increasing the percentage of renewable energy. So I know that's kind of hard to
Sad.
wrap your head around, but
Kinda
it's
sad.
interesting that we still burned more fossil fuel than the year before, so we still have a long ways to go.
There is a written comment about the military energy use contributing to that, which I would love to explore that further if we had another 3, 4. And that is why, another different energy office, Hawaii Energy, their focus is all about efficiency. And I think we're gonna continue having to like move that needle of how much power we need to generate if we don't, as a community, like really prioritize the efficiency stuff.
Yeah. So what I was wanting to ask, which is kind of the basis of open space, is there someone here that would like to lead a breakout group on a topic that isn't on the board? Is there a topic that we haven't really touched on that someone wants to bring up?
It's about those magnets. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, well, you could get together with him and talk about that.
Need a breakout group about battery storage and other forms of storage, especially storage for utility scale projects that need to draw power in certain hours of the day, day or night. And also, I just wanted to point out that the company that's one of the manufacturers, Energy Vault, is the name of the company, that this is actually a relatively low price system. It's purely mechanical. These are composite blocks. They're not actually concrete blocks, but they raise and lower as energy is stored, the blocks raise up, and as energy is drawn down, they lower.
So what I propose is that we go take some breakouts. Those who are interested can go to those breakouts. We just have to tell you where they're going to be, and then take just a half an hour for the breakouts, and those people can then come back at 8:30 and give us a quick summary of what they discussed at the breakout. That's kind of the way it goes, and then we can have more questions and comments. So Mark has a breakout, so he would be.
Pretty batteries.
So which other ones are people gonna go to? What's the top one? What?
It's 7.
Yeah, you have half an hour. You have half an hour to have a
Or even
discussion.
20 minutes, maybe. But,
All right, so we'll give Mark a room or a place to go. That will be the right out this door. There's a table in the garage. It's a nice garage. It's not a.
It's actually really nice.
Yeah.
That chart that Eric just shared is in the ACSO annual report for 2025.
Great.
Thank
Right on their
Sally.
Thank you. Okay, so
What is AGSO?
It just-
Hawaii
Hawaii.
State Energy Office, which Eric represents. Hawaii.
Hawaii.gov.
Okay, and so then, are you gonna run a breakout with yours, or how many people are interested in going with Stacy in the first one?
Community values more.
One person, 2 people, okay. And then what's the second one there? Firm Energy, that includes geothermal with Barry. Who would like to go with Barry? Okay,
Last week.
so if you want, and then what's the next one on there?
Renewable.
With Brad? There's some people want to go with Brad to talk about renewable energy? Nobody? Okay, that's fine. That's fine. And what's
we kind of talked about it already.
the fourth one was B with pumped water storage, but maybe Mark's gonna talk about pumped water storage. a
Yeah,
bit.
all of the above there.
Yeah, because that's a kind of gravity system. So all of those who want to talk about storage systems, you can move
Utility
yourself to the
scale.
garage
5
and come back in half an hour to report to all of us.
storage systems like.
No, like.
Well, that's a
utility
battery,
scale,
that's a type of
big
storage,
one.
but he's gonna talk about bigger ones to help with firm energy in particular, but whatever you want to talk about.
Help them in that.
Okay, well, you can go there for a while, then go there. And Stacy will be in this room here.
We're gonna go in there. Yeah.
And then the rest of us will hang out here.
Information you need. Showing me.
Barry, can you go in the second room there? Take anybody with you? We're gonna move Barry to the second room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
not- that's like-
Stuff for about 10 minutes.
Well, but.
I think somebody wanted, you know, in,
Okay.
I'll be in there.
Oh, maybe it's going to go into the area where I am. I actually the Well, up that track, we come here and fish. Why don't you come down here and buy something? Teach us how we can get all the That probably would be enough.
yeah, why?
The one's already here.
I've been to all of them up there.
Yeah, you're in there. Stacy's in room one, talk about cultural values. Please join her.
Okay.
Barry's in room two to talk about firm energy, geothermal.
Thanks for this, you guys.
Yeah,
Good job.
please make sure you bring back what you come.
We need to have more of these. Whole, you know, evenings per
And
year.
Mark is out in the.
Yeah,
garage.
I agree.
Door.
Yeah. Well, they do have a working group,
They can talk about-
committee
we'll
that,
talk about
that
that.
meets out, sitting on their
Want to
Zoom
talk about the
sometimes. They don't meet
battery? She's
personally,
available
but-
right there.
Oh, that's every month. Yeah, yeah.
And then.
I don't think so, I would do this, but
Break up.
Like, hold it out.
These community values.
Community values. So if you're for Barry's in there for,
What's the topic of this group?
firm energy, geothermal. In room two. And then storage systems is in the garage, out the door here. I'm gonna stay here.
How do you
for
structure the calendar? Gravity storage, is that our title?
Because
Is
there's
that
people
what-
still in the meeting.
Yes.
Yeah. And those people online.
The gravity battery is the nickname of the system.
No, there isn't a way.
Oh, you just got, oh, wait, there.
Join, Frank, people online.
Did it.
Free to join the community values. We're not doing renewables, we cancel that one. But we're doing permanent.
I'm sharing it for people who are online.
Oh,
So,
thank you.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah, for the folks that are interested.
Yeah. I don't know if we have anybody on with us yet.
Oh, we'll see. We'll just draw them in, come on in. Gravity storage, gravity battery.
One thing about gravity.
No, you are.
Get the Zoom going in that.
One thing that's really stabilizing about the gravity battery storage. Well, first, before. Home storage and gravity batteries, anything about storage, especially for utility scale. Project, like the solar AES, it's a big solar array farm.
Yeah.
We call it.
Signal Valley, yeah.
I've never, it's so well hidden, I've never actually seen it.
Airplane, you see it from the airplanes.
Oh,
Yeah, but it's hard from the highway. Yeah.
and they say that.
The one here?
Yes, they have.
Along.
By the
Kuhilani.
college?
No, by Kuhilani. Highway, you know, when you're going the road to Dairy Road extending out to Kuhilani Highway, going towards Lahaina.
Okay.
Dairy Road.
Yeah.
There's a gigantic, like it's 500 acres or something.
Okay.
Solar farm that's on the left-hand side of the street if you're going towards Lahaina.
Never knew about that.
There you go. That's just what Mark said.
It's very well.
It's very well hidden.
So where does that electricity go?
Into the grid.
Oh, yeah.
It's part of the.
It's one of the feeds.
Feeds.
Valley Electric? Yes, yeah, into Hawaiian Electric's overall grid plan. about utility scale storage.
What's being done other places that we could do, but we're not doing yet, is that a fair way to say it?
But I was wondering where you got it from, so I can go and read more about it, research more about it.
Well, I will gladly email you this PDF. It's a PowerPoint presentation to put together about two years ago.
Someone just said that, that
Yeah, so they showed, some diagrams
on fire on the roadway every week. So it just burns up everything, you know, and so then he set the fire on a car that had, you know, he opened the tank of the hydrogen that was coming out. And it was kind of amazing because the hydrogen went up above the car. And the fire wouldn't burn at all, but, you know, the air above the car was just way hot. It's I think we really need to take a good look at hydrogen, you know, I mean, it's basically.
Yeah, what do you do? Okay, so in Scandinavian countries, they're utilizing they call it green hydrogen. So hydrogen can be made many different ways. They're making batteries out of it, and they're making boats out of this thing here, where they just exchange it as a battery, where they're using this thing here. But it's still more expensive than just produce electricity.
Well,
We're getting into like more technical stuff, so we can totally create a new breakout group to talk about technical stuff, but are you guys feeling with those community values aspect of it, or like the priorities, or like if you were king for a day and wanted to?
It's like, community, the people in the community are kind of like all, thinking sort of similar ways. And the stories, the newspapers, the teaching that has brought, you know, solar and electricity, which is very good, very safe generally. But I think that, to confront the community that, you know, wants to drive their car around at 90 miles an hour and, you know, do all kinds of things, or even have something that's dangerous that can be used in a war.
Just turn the microphone was off. You need me to turn it back on? Or it would just turn it on?
No, that's not what I'm trying to figure out, because if that was muted, then the input volume was muted.
Like, they couldn't hear us.
Okay, thank you.
I don't think.
Okay.
I don't know how they would. So I just turned it back on. Sorry if you guys are
I was trying
listening.
to figure out if it was on.
No, it was, and then I just turned it on.
So anyway, it was just sort of maybe a community can change their visions and, you know, do something really new, because if we had done as much work with hydrogen as we've done with solar, there would be a big difference. There would be a big difference.
I'm sorry, guys, we were muted for a little bit, so I'll recap as quickly as possible. We talked about the differences between generation and distribution, and that more focus should be put on distribution. We were focusing, also wanting to highlight flexibility and innovation to look at new types of energy, like wave energy and hydrogen, as options, and then also really focusing more on the solar with batteries. And then Chelsea mentioned needing to spend more time on spreading awareness and almost like a knowledge base of information, and starting with youth engagement, since they're the ones who are gonna have to live with all of this when we're all gone. And making sure that all projects also discuss the ethical and environmental and other risks that are related to any kind of a project. And then, of course, also making sure that we phase out from coal and oil, because it's awful. So that's the quick recap. If anybody wants to chime in, you're welcome to unmute or put in the chat. I'll try to look at it as much as can. But there's just a couple of us in here. So, oh, you had perfect timing. I just did like a little recap of, but we're talking about community values, and what are our priorities, as a community when it comes to, anyway. So if you have something you want to share right now, or if you just wanted to listen, Yeah, great.
Let me ask one more thing. I don't know why we are here. I mean, we can sit and talk about this thing here, it sounds good. Where do we get the action from? What is our political action? Do we have this people here? Do we have a political arm that we can utilize?
So.
We have an economic arm because
Oh.
it sounds good. We can sit and talk about it for 100 years and nothing gets done.
Well, part of it is having advocates who know what the,
Okay.
like, you know, I could go and say what I want, but I'm still like, you just in my circle of influence. So part of the purpose of this is to kind of have these discussions so that when we do go to the legislature, when we do
But
rally
who's
testimonies.
the we? It's a big we.
I mean, there's all of us as like grassroots movements.
Well,
aren't
I'm going.
always.
I go in, I go to them, and
I mean-
economically, I look for the right thing to do.
I'm a very active member of the political space.
Okay.
So is Chelsea. I see you at a lot of meetings too. And then also everybody on our board is part of a co-op that we're beginning to form. So like I think we just filed our bylaws. So it's in the infancy stage of a co-op. So that was gonna be one of my other questions, if there's any kind of input about ownership of the systems. Do you guys care if Eco continues to own it? Do you want to prioritize like some more of a co-op type of a model, or a community-owned model, a government-owned model? Is that just not something you really think about? Have you thought about who the decision, how we dictate who the decision makers are when it comes to energy? Because that is one of the political things that we are working on, is building a co-op that can work on small projects or potentially be in a position to acquire the utility if they ever were up for sale. Because we've seen that happen a few times where the utility will be open to being sold and then it ends up falling through. So that's just another kind of arm of community values that are being because a lot of energy things are decided at the PUC, which is 3 members, 3 people appointed by the governor, basically regulate the whole utility. And I'm learning how to advocate at the PUC. It's much harder than the ledge, which is saying something. Because those 3 members are usually pretty set with decision, not bias too much. Yeah.
How would you look at the many firms that have this big metal tank in there, and that's what runs their stove and their dryers and you know, stuff like that. How would you where would you put that kind of energy use in
It's a great question. Because I wonder about that a lot. When we were talking to the Hawaii State Energy Office about it, we were really curious about like, are they tracking propane appliances? Are they tracking gas generators? When they're talking about 100% renewable energy, does that just mean the grid? Or does that mean every propane tank in Hawaii has been transitioned into something else?
They think it's a gasoline car.
Yeah,
So.
but I don't know if gas cars are under that 100% renewable. So it's,
If it wanted to be 100% renewable, you wouldn't have gasoline cars either.
So
It's propane.
would you argue that like community value would be like truly 100% renewable, where we're not using gas cars, we're not using propane appliances? Like, is that something that's appealing to you guys, or is it a necessary? I mean, maybe not 2045. Maybe
Yeah.
that's a goal for like 2070 or something. But do you think that should be part of the discussion topic? 100% renewable.
Yeah, I think that 100% renewable is. Well, I guess I'm a liberal guy anyway, but it's kind of unrealistic, but.
Yeah, but it's always good to have good ideas and good goals.
I mean, dream big, right? Because it's possible.
But let me tell you this, you're a young girl. You know why the windmills got such a bad start in Hawaii? Because we put a windmill up many years ago, and it fell down right off the bat. And that killed the whole
And then they tried-
windmill, industry for 20 years. It was just a piss poor design. So there's nothing wrong with it, with the windmills. But
The
it's,
one that was in Hawaii, is that what you're talking about?
no, not that
Okay,
one.
then never.
No, it was a windmill that was in the Big Island.
All right, I didn't want to interrupt.
So that set that whole industry back 20 years, and then we never brought a new windmill in again for a long time before we get the next one here. We have enough technology right now with the existing technology to just do solar. If we just, it might not be the cheapest. It might be cheaper to do geotechnical because we can do that maybe cheaper. We have enough with just solar alone,
Mhm.
and we can do that across.
Can we store enough solar to go through
Yes.
the winter?
Yes.
Well, I don't
What
see.
winter you on about? We don't have winter here. We still have
Well,
solar.
the rainy season,
Rainy
the
season,
hurricane season. it's-
Yes, we can.
I mean, we saw in
So we can,
March,
Yeah.
a lot of people in March have issues with their systems, and I think that comes from an efficiency. Because you just get kind of spoiled when you have it, when it's like just all automatic. So I think it's also a training of our behaviors. So like if we have if it's hurricane season, maybe turn some breakers off and conserve your battery power for a little longer, which is a little more behavioral. But I'm hearing that first impressions for implementing new energy systems is a really important thing for success as well.
We have neighbors, and one in particular, we often hear that, oh, my batteries are down. And, oh, for some reason, it's just not working, And she has, gasoline and stuff to run it on, but it's not, it doesn't seem to work very
Mhm.
well, in the wrong season. And, we're maybe in a place where there's less sunshine than where you at.
Haiku or,
Yeah.
yeah,
yeah, but we have it.
wait, oh yeah, it's dark over there. Pretty dark over there.
We have our eastern coast, yeah.
We have enough places to make enough sun. So
But
we can,
there is,
Because-
she has no connection.
but
to
we
it.
can.
If you're in Huelo, then what do you feel about like hydropower? I think like that's kind of what powered Hawaii originally. That's how we got electricity at Iolani Palace before anywhere else in America. And I know that sometimes using the streams to generate power can be really controversial. So I'm just curious. what you guys-
2 minutes, wrap it up and come back.
Yeah, that's a very good idea because, we have so much rain up the mountain and, if we had one, if we collected it, I mean, and through the winter, I mean, the ocean is,
We can't even collect enough water for our drinking water.
Well, some of it's in the delivery as well. I've heard ideas like putting little, like, if you look at those like water wheels from old days and putting smaller ones into all the pipes. So when we're delivering water, we're also generating energy. And kind of these like win-win situation of like, kind of what Chelsea was talking about too, of like, we gotta move this stuff. We might as well generate power while we're moving it.
yeah, I talked to a guy who was, understanding, he was kind of an engineer, sort of mind,
Mhm.
about how much water we would need, how high up, and how big of a pipe and stuff like that. And, it's pretty amazing. I mean, we have about 200 people, maybe just 100 people, I don't know, but, we have access to, some water up above. But it's, the way it's done now, it's a Hawaiian.
Homeland.
Sorry?
Hawaiian homeland.
They're, if it was, built up more, larger, if you go up there and see what the, sugar cane people
it's a mess, you know, they're taking.
Built 150 years ago.
What's that?
It was built 150 years ago.
Yeah, maybe more like 100, but,
Yeah.
If I want them to finish. I would
There-
think so.
but the numbers he gave me and the information he gave me, well, for one thing, the higher up you get, the more powerful the thing is when it comes down. And, well, I looked it up once, and if it goes up on top of the mountain, there, you have water there, one pint comes down, will give you a lot of power.
Yeah.
So, but the rain is up there for, a few thousand feet, so.
Okay, I wanna let Nicola at least get a word in.
Oh,
Just,
We'll come out in
education. I don't know if you spoke about that,
a little bit,
because
but
you
expand.
say something that sounds great, but I'm sure 30% of the island would be 100 degrees against what you're saying. And I don't want to give any example. Well, I'll give one example, nuclear. That's a debate. People say, is that clean energy or not? I don't want to get into the debate here. I'm just saying that educating people before we do anything. Because when you asked about the political, that's what some of us have been involved in for years. And it's like talking to a brick wall of moving.
So like,
Where we are today is so much past where we were, for example, 40 years ago. when I first came.
so
Anyway,
educate,
I didn't mean educate.
fact check, verify
Yeah,
with the
thank
broader
Thank you.
community.
Yeah, you're more articulate than I am.
I'm good at summarizing.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, no, that was a really good input. I'm glad you spoke up.
when you left Canada, I was wondering.
Thank you very much.
Yes, no, thank you too. It was really, your 2 minutes were
Good.
solid.
Oh, but thank you for everything you do.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, everyone, you gotta look at my neck.
Oh, wait, you expect that on your end? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, try to get on the right, well, it's like, it doesn't make sense, but it's.
She was using the battery, the Wi-Fi.
I don't know, if that's really, is that a Wi-Fi? I'm just trying to connect.
That's about what we have.
Thank you so much. That was
Yeah.
really interesting. And her and I are gonna on the same email.
So,
Yeah,
what
I'll get
is your
the
interested
stuff
in,
from her.
Andy? Why did you attend this?
What was your name again?
Well, like I said,
Nolan Johnson.
number one, I think that we,
Fabulous.
as an island, with all of our sun and all of our wind,
My current, this is.
really.
Here's something.
Yeah.
When I kind of wrote it down there.
We have these things where it's capturing it and then it doesn't go anywhere.
I know, it's what.
Well, I think the gentleman explained it.
Like if you safe harbor the equipment before July, you have like 2 more years to install it. Hey. And it doesn't, there's no size, there's no like limit on size.
Okay. And that's just really at the end of the year. You're just saying.
Like with the year you place it in service, you get to like take the tax credit.
Okay.
You have to place it in service in that calendar year.
If it's gonna happen.
You can hear me, raise your hand. If you can hear me, raise your hand.
They didn't get into detail about.
If you can hear me, raise your hand. Thank you. Just a few more people, Lucian, come on. Daniel, get your wife back here.
It's like standing, so I printed it again.
Come on, Lucian. Okay. So Stacy, did you want to report your group first, your summary? Okay, grab a chair, folks.
So we were talking about community values and we went on a few tangents, but good tangents. The short version is that our small group really wanted to prioritize innovation, flexibility, and education and awareness. And under education and awareness, it was very much highlighted that we need to also make sure we're discussing ethics and the risks of any new technology in those conversations. And also have some form of a knowledge base to fact check and verify things. And acknowledgement that the, 5 people in a room isn't necessarily representative of the whole community, so the decisions should be verified in some way, whether that's like surveys or canvassing or whatever. We didn't really get that far. And there was focus on using the technology we already have, like solar and wind, but also using like youth engagement and workforce development programs to look at more innovative technologies like wave energy, and focus on sort of win-win situations that can benefit both our water shortage and our energy needs. So that like water energy nexus came up in conversation a lot. And we have lots of different examples of that, of utilizing existing infrastructure and adding renewable energy to it. And possibly looking at desalination or using like streams to generate power, or looking at the different ways we deliver water if there's opportunities there to also generate power when we're looking at water delivery. The other thing I thought was really interesting and that I've not heard discussed before was we should expand the definition of 100% renewable energy to also include gas cars, propane tanks, gas generators. That like 100% doesn't just mean the grid, it means like everything else too. And that probably can't be done by 2045, but it should be part of our priorities. And then the last thing I haven't mentioned yet was that first impressions are very important. And so it's important that when we test out new technology, that it's done well and that it's safe, and that like the first impression in the community of a new technology can really stunt the growth of that, even if it is good technology just implemented poorly. So focusing on like really solid implementations. And that's it.
Thanks, Stacy, so much. So the idea, the idea is to continue this conversation in the community continuously. And we already have a monthly meeting, which we call the Maui Community Energy Alliance. That's, not associated with anybody in particular, except we sort of doing that. And so that's what these little sheets are. So we want you to come and join us, and associated with that is a Google Drive, which is going to have you're going to type this up, right? You're willing to type it up and put it in the Google Drive under your topic.
Yeah.
And so each of the presenters have asked if you could please, if you didn't already do it, you could have done it in real time, but I don't know if we were well set up.
I have one informational follow-up to that.
Absolutely. I'm just going to say, finish my marketing spiel, but I want to really have community voice and come from the grassroots, and that's all of us to figure this out, rather than having the developers come and say, we want to put a utility scale pro thing here, and it's too late because they didn't really, we got it all planned. They went with HECO with an RSP or whatever those are called, RFP.
We did also talk about like the need for political will and like, this is all great, but what are we gonna do about it? And
Right.
so I think that is a part of the importance of like why we're all here.
Yeah, so have a joint drive, and yours will go in as everyone who had a group and should put that in their break into the drive, which is also one of the QR code things here. Okay, Barry.
Yeah, so Stacy was mentioning extending the 100% renewable energy requirement to other sectors like transportation. So it should be noted there was a recent settlement of a major lawsuit with the HEMI versus the State Department of Transportation. And as part of that settlement, the state DOT is supposed to commit to decarbonizing the transportation sector by 2045. So does that mean net zero by then? I'm not totally clear about that, but you may want to look at that settlement.
Yeah, I quick Googled it, because when you said that, like, I think it includes transportation. And it says, the Hawaii's overarching goal of achieving carbon negative, like carbon negative 100% renewable state by 2045 explicitly encompasses all transportation sectors, including ground, inter-island air, and sea travel. Like, not to the mainland, but inter-island. And there are there's already they're blending biofuels into like aviation like,
RPS and net zero goals are separate.
Yeah,
There was a proposed inter-island transport that was going to be electrified.
Yeah.
They.
I'm not saying we're gonna, I'm just
Yeah.
saying it is part of the goal was transportation, and I feel like at a,
You see what Eric said?
Eric's saying they're separate.
they're separate.
Yeah,
RPS
they are,
net
they
zero
did
goals,
this,
so.
but I wasn't sure about the propane appliances thing, that was.
But we understand the need for the principle to be all the same.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but as a value, it was
Right.
renewable everything.
Renewable energy.
Okay, Barry, you had a breakout. You wanna give us
Okay,
a
so-
summary?
Yeah, we had a robust conversation about geothermal. There was a recent geothermal beneficiary informational briefing that Hawaiian Homelands had. I wasn't able to attend that, but several of the other participants were able to attend that. However, I have visited geothermal energy plants and sites in Iceland, New Zealand, and California. So the main issues here was a lot of questions about where the best sites would be. What about the water? Would people want to be drilling for minerals as part of this activity? Who would pay for it? Who would make the decisions? Would there be community consent and whatnot? There was seemed to be some skepticism about this being effective on Maui because the shortage of water and less active volcanic activity, but that's the reason for having some kind of exploration activity. Just went through the briefing material very quickly. There was a little vague about funding sources and things like that. So all of these questions are good for very targeted follow-up questions, maybe contacting that agency with that. Hope we can get that clarified. I guess some of the visitors from New Zealand who've had a lot of experience and success with geothermal had attended, but as I noted when I was in the North Island and geothermal, it's almost everywhere there. It's very, very extensive and there's a lot of water in New Zealand, so the situation's somewhat different than here, but anyway, it's worth exploring further, and those are things, that we think should be followed up in more detailed discussion and analysis.
Did you read the EIS that was released maybe 8-9 years ago about the proposed areas here where they were going to do geothermal exploration for hot water, basically, not for magma, for hot
I just
water.
skimmed that and I noted some of the areas that seem to be high priority sites, like the Haleakala Southern Rip Zone.
Yeah, the Southern Rip Zone was there. And the primary thing, I read that and wrote comments with the Sierra Club and, there was a lot of considerations missing from the analysis is what I would just say from my memory, yeah.
Yeah, and of
Because
course,
9 years ago.
with
Yeah.
geothermal, you can do direct heating for hot water and pools, farming, things like that. It's a lot simpler than for full-scale electric generation, and there's a lot of different technologies involved. Some are more complicated and less efficient than.
But if you've gone to Puna, their geothermal, it's very toxic. I mean, if you've ever been there when they release the gases or something, it's terrible.
Yeah, there's a lot
It's
of
really
homes
terrible.
close to the sites.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of the problem. You don't want to have very major activity close to where people live, because there is air pollution and, you know, nasty stuff you don't want to be.
It was interesting at the Hawaiian Energy Conference because the keynote speaker was Mona Newton from New Zealand. And their Tahara North Number 2 Trust is a tribe that used to belong to that land. And with many ways similar to Maui culturally.
That's who was up at the John.
Yeah, and they had a great video, and I guess Kiana Rollins Fernandez went down and visited. They've made a video together, which is very interesting because it does approach and talk about the safety of the cultural sites and of the culture and how they reclaimed and bought back their land and the rights to their land, and then hired someone to come put a geothermal plant on. And their houses are right next door. So I think they also talked about harvesting minerals and water and gases. So I think that's a better plant than they have on Puna. I know Puna's tried to fix their gases. I don't know what their success rate is. I know that's been a highly
Not for the
controversial.
people who live there, that nobody's saying, oh, it's good now.
Yeah, right. That's what I hear. So, you know, it takes a lot to, you know, to talk about and to really, but it's just, we don't know what Maui could do that way. And it's definitely something that needs to be grassroots and based on what's, you know, okay.
And who profits,
Discussed. And yeah.
you know, I mean, that's a big consideration.
But well, this is why in New
Yeah.
Zealand, that's exactly what they did. They use that money for their community. And they sell it to the rest of New Zealand, and it all comes to their community. They have a nonprofit it goes to support all of their cultures and you know, it's like the Native Americans do their casinos. They have a casino, which they may not like, but it supports their community because they're allowed to do that. So it was an interesting perspective, which I wasn't really aware of, because I know it's, you know, not something that we know much about for Maui. There you go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Always. The
Kelly
speed of trust.
Johnson's speech at that was more about it's our responsibility to know it's there. So the emphasis was more on just knowing what's there and then no decisions were being made. But I think the room was skeptical of that assertion by the director. So I think there's a lot of trust rebuilding that has to happen with DHHL first, and the New Zealand representative who was there made it very clear that they were just coming to present what works for them and not pushing anything on us, because what works for them may not necessarily work for us, and that it's just more of a learning and sharing of information across place to like Indigenous communities.
All right, so the third breakout was Mark, where's Mark? Someone else gonna report or Mark gonna report?
I took notes.
Okay, we'll see him then.
So, our group was about a gravity battery concept. And, it's a storage that can be applied to utility scale solar. And Mark brought out that especially if you had concentrated solar, it'd be a very appropriate, you know, match, because you could have something in a compact footprint if you had concentrated solar, and then your storage was the gravity battery, which doesn't take up a lot of space. There's the advantages are there's nothing to break down as the power pours in. The battery structure raises these composite blocks, and then when energy is needed later, they can be lowered, and the process of lowering them, you know, spins a turbine or does something to create energy. None of us knew exactly what it did. I'll be honest. But Mark has a PowerPoint that he put together that illustrates the concept, and so he said he'd be happy to make it available to anybody, and maybe that can go on the Google Drive. Maybe that's one of the documents that should come out of this that goes on the Google Drive. But there is one commercial company he referred to, I don't know if that's the only one that's doing this, called Energy Vault, energyvault.com. And they have systems in place in 40 different countries. So one of our questions was, well, if this is out there, how come we've never heard of it? And if it is around in 40 different places, would it be cool, like, to have a video or to have someone come from one of those places and talk about how it's working, or, you know, something like that, because it seemed a very, very interesting and useful concept. Mark pointed out that it could be kind of part of a smooth transition towards something like large scale, like a pumped storage, you know, like an island centric pump storage. But he said he himself is setting himself up for an opportunity to invest in a tabletop model that can just be shown around. And he really thought, he said the utilities might think it's too expensive right now, but if the community could see how this worked, and if we could bring in examples of places where it is working, then that could advance it. Mark also felt that there really needs to be a point person hired to conduct educational outreach to popularize the concept of a gravity battery. And it would not only pair well with the solar concentrator, but it could really also maybe be connected into one of our biggest energy users, which are wastewater treatment plants. And he gave a picture of the one in the west side, Lahaina. I'm very familiar with that plant. And that plant is surrounded by Hawaiian homelands too. There's about 800 acres of Hawaiian homelands adjacent to it. So the idea was, wow, if you could set up a solar concentrator and then this gravity storage battery, you could power the plant and have some energy to distribute to Hawaiian homes. Maybe Hawaiian Homes would be interested in being some sort of a partner in it. So that's kind of where we left it. There was so much more to discuss, but it was a very fascinating concept. And it seems like a very practical idea that most people have never heard of.
Thank you. And so, would you put something in the Google Drive, or does Mark want to send something to Christina, who's right beside? We could
Yeah,
put in the
I
Google
think
Drive?
he's gonna put that
That's
in.
what you're gonna do, and then, so anyone who gave it, you got emails when people arrived, when they registered? That will go out to you as an email if you gave us your email. If you didn't give us your email, please give it to Christina, and she can do that. I had a little mini breakout, which I'll report on. The two of us talked about wave energy, which isn't discussed very often, and I had a conversation 2 weeks ago with a fellow who's contracts with the Navy, and they have a wave energy 8-foot wide buoy that sits in the ocean off Oahu and produces power that bounces up and down. The air gets compressed, turns a turbine either direction, and stores energy in a battery, and then the battery is used by a small underwater drone, which is tethered, to go and repair things. Okay, but and they don't have a cable to the shore because that's too expensive and would require public permits and environmental review and all that. But he says the main problem with this is that the cable that holds the buoy to the ground keeps breaking with the wave energy and the storms. And so they have to go out with boats and underwater subs and to fix it and catch it. And they estimate it costs $15,000 a day because of all of the repairs. So it's not financially doable.
Not ready for prime time.
They're trying to find a better cable. So that was the long and short of that. But there is wave energy actually being used right now by the Navy, based on this contractor who told me about it. So,
You know, they proposed a wave energy, I don't know if it was an experimental project or whatever. It was going to be built, kind of off of Haiku. There's like a little bay there that was proposed, Kuyaha Bay. Soundly opposed by Les Kulaloyo and his family who lived in that area. They just felt like it's going to disrupt fishing and a whole bunch of other things that are, very connected to that particular area. And so it might have been a matter of a bad location, but it was being considered. This was maybe 15 years ago or so.
So I don't know if anyone else has information on wave energy, but it's.
Did the thing that was getting busted, did it have a coil inside of it?
I don't have enough details to answer, Daniel.
Because it could
He
wind you
showed me a
up.
picture of it for that.
To get more energy.
Right. I know it drove the turbine with compressed air that the wave compressed the cylinder up and down both directions. So that's all I know. Okay. Any other final comments from our panelists? Stacy? No?
No, right? Well, I do think that the other breakout groups really reflect the same values that we talked about in our community values conversation. So I think that it's at least very affirming that even though it was a small group, the instincts were there.
Yeah, look how many people stayed to the end too. Thank you. Barry?
How many people are really grateful that this came into their lives?
No final comments, Barry?
No.
Okay, Brad?
I was just learning about gravity storage online.
Study it.
Got him going.
Yeah.
Just express one concern about putting on a shirt back. Desalinization scares me a lot. The waste, the power that it takes. What happens with the bones. I personally feel that spending our time having desalinization conversations when actually, I think we all know that there's a tendency for, especially if it's just government investment, like one thing is gonna be invested in, right? And so if one thing is gonna be invested in, it should be like getting R0, making that happen. Cause even like R1 and not using it, even though we have all this water, like I just, for me, like desalinization, I literally, when that conversation comes up, I'm like, what about R0? So
I'll share that concern.
Thank you.
For both of them, but
Yeah, there are two, I mean, this isn't a water conversation, it's energy, but the water and energy are really quite linked because desalination costs a lot of energy, but the energy from solar renewables can power desalination plant, which can make the water, which creates the pumped water storage, which then, and you can manage some of those other things like brine, and there are 2 desalination plants planned right now that are in the works, West and South Maui. That I don't know much about, but I'd like to know more about.
You're not alone. There's a very sketchy sort of report and it has very little depth to it. There's not a lot of there. It's kind of like the 10,000-foot view. It was a study that the county paid good money for, but there are those who we do, if people who are interested in water, I'm also on the board of Maui Tomorrow Foundation. And we have a monthly water committee meeting that we just get very cutting edge on people's ideas about water resources throughout the island. So we go, northwest, south, east, and just people give updates. There's about 15 people that participate. And people read lengthy documents and summarize them, and et cetera, et cetera.
I mean, the
So,
water director, John Stufflebean, I think is his name.
Yeah,
Was at the energy meeting and presented and said there was a 2 desalination plants they're
Yeah.
working and looking at. And they also talked about the fact that we don't have enough water. And I've had conversations with Albert and others about, we don't have enough water, but if we desalinate along with development, which we don't necessarily
we don't
want
use the
more of.
water we have
Right,
very
very well.
judicious.
Right.
So
So it should be, if you're gonna do that, let's like have regulations that say go to residents and locals first.
Yeah.
Anyway. That's a
Yeah,
whole other
it's a long discussion.
I do think it's.
Mark's,
nice
Mark
to-
waving his hands around, is that a desalination plant?
This is a Pitcairn Holding Point. Island is a desalination plant run by Trevi Systems that is now powered by solar concentrating system. And
Right now on the Big Island?
the Trevi system.
It's at
has-
National Energy Lab.
It produces fresh water at a higher recovery rate than conventional plants, which means significantly less brine is returned to the ocean.
Yeah.
So,
Technology can save us, maybe.
It is relatively small scale
I
though.
think it does validate though that the water conversation and energy conversation should be happening in parallel because
Yeah.
what happens with water.
They're very
does-
connected.
They're very connected and I think our community, Shay always says this, that like our community is much more educated about water. And if we can learn to talk about energy, the way we talk about water, we'll make a lot more progress.
Have any of you ever visited any of our, the Motlaya plant or the Kahului plant? Because I have.
No, it
They use a
wasn't included on our
tremendous
Eco Tour.
amount of water,
People
brackish
didn't
water.
take us.
They took the other group, but they
Yeah.
didn't take.
Yeah. Tremendous amount of water.
It's all Shayna's fault.
It wasn't Shayna's fault.
Behind
Yeah.
there,
Oh.
I will say, you know, another benefit to solar is, you know, there's no moving parts, there's no water.
Right, it's true.
Lasts a while. Okay, well, I don't want to keep anybody any longer, frankly, and I do want to just end on a note of gratitude for all of the people who come here. You know, from Hawaii State Energy, HECO, all the engineers and the people and all of us that contributed and all the Mana'o that you're sharing here and every day. And thank you for being involved in this. And please join us on June 11th online at 9 a.m. We'll find it on our website at our Maui Community Energy Alliance meeting. We'll talk some more.
Those monthly meetings are really great, and I was posting them on my YouTube channel if you ever want to go back and see some of the presentations we've had about different topics. It's a good way to like microdose your education on energy 1 month at a time.
I want to thank Christina for organizing all of them. It's June 12th.
Oh, yeah, that's it. Totally organized.
June 12th, Maui Community, it's on our
My
website.
day.
Pulled off the Zoom miracle of the century.
So do you guys, when you get food donated, do you do like a mahalo and someone takes a little film of it and sends it to Flatbread? Like we do that for our Malama
Oh, we
Home Food
should.
Days. Everybody goes, mahalo
Take a
Flatbread.
picture?
Yeah,
They donate the food? That's
Yes.
yeah.
The Sierra Club
Yeah,
arranged that.
yeah, we just do a little, we just.
Okay, do that. You can see the pizza
All right,
box.
everybody ready?
Unless you don't want to be seen at high. 1, 2, 3, now.
Mahalo Flatbread.
Could have been a video, I guess.
think I got it.
I think you got it. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.
Take it now.
I've staffed that. I've staffed that.